Hey everyone, we've updated our channel name from Chinese Novel Audio Wave to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Nothing else will be changing. We're still uploading a new video every day, bringing you the best Chinese novel audiobooks. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 81, The Breathing Technique and Hidden Turmoil. Late at night, Chen Huaian turned over in his sleep. Li Qingran hasn't been bullied in her new sect, right? He groggily reached for his phone, took a quick glance, and saw Li Qingran diligently cultivating in-game. Satisfied, he casually tossed his phone aside and went back to sleep. On the windowsill, the black cat, Baji, curled up into a ball, breaking into a cold sweat. Only when it confirmed that Chen Huaian had fallen asleep again did it let out a sigh of relief. Facing the nine-turn spirit orchid under the moonlight, it slowly released a suppressed aura, a menacing energy that belonged to the Teodi. Dark tendrils extended from its body, merging into the room's shadows, filling the air with a sinister presence. That big green fish sure is lucky. Baji scoffed at the blue carp leisurely bathing in the basin, absorbing spiritual qi. In this era of dwindling spiritual qi, living in a place rich with energy, under the protection of a powerful master, was an unimaginable fortune. As for how Baji understood the current world, it had learned from watching TV whenever Chen Huaian turned it on. Eventually, it figured out how to turn it on itself whenever Chen Huaian left. Now, it knew that the metal box that nearly crushed it last time was called a semi-trailer truck. It wasn't a human weapon, just a transportation device. Real human weapons were things called guns and cannons, which were like long-range hidden weapons that could kill enemies from afar. With this newfound knowledge, Baji became even more convinced that its master was here to comprehend the Tao. He must have traveled across countless worlds, sealing his power and memories to experience different Tao laws, refining his path to perfection. But no one should mistake a sealed master for an easy target. If he dared to suppress his own strength and memories, he must have a means of self-preservation. Baji speculated that the phone was his secret weapon. Unlike human phones, its master's device had a pitch-black screen that only he could see. It was a tool for comprehending the Tao, a treasure that even Baji had once coveted. But after witnessing the terrifying Purple Heaven Divine Thunder Talisman last time, it no longer dared to entertain such thoughts. This carp must have been left here on purpose by the master. If the master intends to keep you, then I shall grant you a stroke of fortune. As one of the four ancient fiend beasts, the Teodi was practically the ancestor of all demons. To bestow sentience upon a creature and transform it into a true demon was an effortless act. Baji pressed its paw against the carp's forehead, allowing a single drop of dark red blood to seep into its skin. At this rate, it will fully demonize in 2 months. Baji retracted its paw, its round eyes gleaming with cunning. Once the carp became a demon, it would serve as the perfect distraction. As long as its master's memories remained sealed, his attention would be focused on the newly transformed carp, meaning he wouldn't have time to notice anything wrong about Baji itself. Kekakik, I'm a genius. Stupid cat, what the hell are you screeching about in the middle of the night? Half asleep, Chen Huaian casually threw a pillow in Baji's direction. His hand brushed against his phone's screen. A game notification popped up. Your remaining lifespan, 57 days. Today's fortune, minor blessing, auspicious for marriage. You're kidding, right? 30, are you seriously expecting me to believe this story? A burly, bearded man stared in disbelief at the school uniform-clad girl in front of him. What had she just said? Some mysterious expert casually threw out 7 or 8 thunderfire talismans capable of summoning divine lightning. And, he was cohabiting with a high-grade demonic entity. Was this even Chinese anymore? Brother Wu, I may not be an official member of the Demon Slaying Bureau, but you know my character. Lin Lingling's wounds were wrapped in simple bandages, and after applying the Bureau's special wound healing salve, she felt much better. But she still had to lean against her spear for support. She added, moreover, I suspect that demon isn't just a high-grade entity, it might be a Yao specter. The bearded man, Wu, let out an exasperated sigh. The demon-slaying bureau categorized demonic entities into several levels: Yao generals, Yao specters, Yao beasts, and Yao monsters. Among them, Yao monsters were newly awakened creatures affected by the spiritual qi revival. They primarily evolved by consuming flesh and devouring one another. But Yao specters, only a soldier class revived could handle those. Anything weaker than that would just be throwing themselves into the meat grinder. Because Yao specters were as intelligent as humans, meaning tricking them into submission was out of the question. If Lin Lingling's report was accurate and this really was a Yao specter, they were in deep trouble. Especially since the Sea Province Demon Slaying Bureau didn't have a single soldier class revived. He and Old Li were both merely master class grade A. There was no way they could take on such a threat. You also said this demon is living with a mysterious revived, correct? And that this revived can use thunder talismans. That's right. I even tested him. He seems completely unaware of the bureau. Lin Lingling rubbed her chin, deep in thought. I have two theories. 1. This person is a wild revived, someone who naturally awakened and is unaware of the bureau. But the fact that a wild revived can already control his powers so skillfully is suspicious. 2. He might actually be a member of the bureau or another private exorcist organization, just executing a secret mission, hence why he ignored my probing questions. No, there's a third possibility. Wu's expression turned grim. Have you considered that he might be an uncontrolled revived? An uncontrolled revived. Lin Lingling recalled the video account she had seen of Chen Huaian and his carefree, idiotic, yet strangely pure demeanor. Could an uncontrolled revived really have that kind of gaze? She had never even considered the possibility. Wu, however, remained unconvinced. People can pretend, you know. This situation is too serious to ignore. Wu slammed his hand on the table, his eyes sharp. You're the only one who's interacted with this mysterious revived, and he hasn't attacked you yet. That means your new mission is to monitor him closely. The moment he, or the demon in his home, shows any abnormal signs, you report back immediately. I've already requested a soldier class backup from headquarters. You just need to stall for time. Me, Lin Lingling pointed at herself, her lips twitching. You want me, a mere white class grade A, to keep tabs on that expert. If you do it well, I'll promote you to master class. Wu grinned, hands folded smugly. You know we're short-staffed. Most freelance exorcists are cowards. But you, 3-0, you're different. You're fearless. I believe in you. Just stall until our reinforcements arrive, and I'll make you master class. Hell, I'll even make you an official member. Isn't master class already an automatic promotion? Not the same thing. Wu pulled out a document from his desk. This is the newly developed breathing technique. If I promote you, you'll gain access to the first 3 volumes. Lin Lingling's face twitched. They really did perfect the breathing technique. Her fingers tightened around her spear. After a moment, she raised her head and met Wu's gaze. Deal, but I'm broke. I need a quick demon slaying job on the side. No problem. Wu gestured toward the mission board, grinning. Pick anything you like. Chapter 82. Are you serious? Disciple Qingran humbly prays to the heavens for mercy, to dispel calamities, and to bless my master with safety and peace. At dawn the next day, Li Qingran followed her usual routine, bathing in incense and offering 3 bows to the sky, praying for her master's well-being. Afterward, she rode the celestial crane gifted by senior sister Jiaolei and headed toward the sect's sword pavilion plaza. She had always been a punctual person, believing that arriving early was enough. But the moment she reached the plaza, she was stunned. The entire plaza was already packed with people. The rooftops, the ancient pines, the very tips of the bamboo in the grove, wherever one could stand, sit, lie down, or meditate, were all occupied by disciples of the sword pavilion. The better the vantage point, the more crowded it was. Clang! A sudden sword cry pierced the air, and from the front of the crowd, a dazzling sword light shot skyward. Then came the sounds of battle. Get lost. This is my spot. You think just because you say so, it's yours. I say it's mine. I left my flying sword here to claim this spot. Like I care. The intense clashing of swords roared into the sky. Yet, none of the surrounding disciples of the sword pavilion seemed inclined to intervene. Instead, they watched with great interest, even discussing who would win. You'll have to come even earlier next time, junior sister. A voice came from above, and a figure gracefully landed on the tip of a bamboo stalk beside her. It was Xuan, the same senior brother who had gifted her spirit wine the day before. Senior brother Xu. Li Qingran quickly bowed in greeting. No need to be so formal. Xuan, holding a wine gourd, looked slightly intoxicated as he chuckled. The sect's morning lessons are extremely important. They're when the elders answer cultivation questions and the direct disciples share their battle experiences. Only after this do the elders of each peak take their disciples back for specialized sword training. I see. Li Qingran nodded, still somewhat confused. Sword Pavilion's teaching model was vastly different from Qingyan sect's, it even seemed quite eco-friendly. That's why you need to arrive early and claim a good spot. Sometimes, the direct disciples will spar, and the closer you are to the front, the more details you can observe. It's very beneficial for both cultivation and swordplay, Xuan explained. His intoxication seemed to swell as he swayed precariously atop the bamboo stalk. Yet, no matter how much he wobbled, his feet remained firmly planted on the tip. But senior brother, you arrived late too. Me, Xuan waved dismissively. No one dares take my spot. The very front is reserved for the top 3 direct disciples of each peak. If anyone wants my spot, they'll have to beat me first. At the front, the sword fight seemed to have reached its conclusion. One disciple, cursing under his breath, leapt onto a nearby rooftop and promptly knocked down another disciple who had already secured a good spot, taking it for himself. Bees. Dong, dong, dong. A distant, ethereal bell tolled from the mountains, 9 chimes in total. Instantly, the entire plaza fell silent. Morning lessons are starting. Xuan's expression turned serious, and his drunkenness vanished in an instant. Junior sister, I'll be heading to the front. See you later. The moment he finished speaking, Li Qingran blinked, and Xuan was already gone, leaving only the swaying bamboo behind. Li Qingran was completely absorbed in the morning lessons. The elders of the Sword Pavilion didn't just dump their own experiences onto the disciples and call it a day. Because the gap in cultivation levels was too vast, much of their knowledge would be incomprehensible to lower-level disciples. So, instead, they carefully deconstructed their insights, tailoring them for each cultivation stage so that all disciples could grasp them easily. At the same time, they exposed disciples to knowledge above their current level without hindering their progress. This reminded Li Qingran of her time in Qingyan sect. Back then, when Taoist Qingshan taught her the Qian technique, he simply recited the incantation and left her to figure it out on her own. Translating the incantation into something she could actually understand had already taken her a ridiculous amount of effort. After the morning lessons ended, the disciples left under the guidance of their respective elders. But Li Qingran didn't leave right away. She wandered around the small plaza for a while. Finally, she spotted the Sword Pavilion master, Su Qinian, fast asleep on a towering ancient pine. Sect master, this junior has something to report. Standing beneath the tree, she bowed respectfully. No response. She looked up and saw that this late-stage nascent soul powerhouse was sleeping soundly, completely unguarded. Sect master, junior sister, that won't wake him up. Out of nowhere, Yu Qianqi appeared, grinning mischievously as she draped an arm around Li Qingran's shoulder. Master can sense killing intent from 100 miles away, but within the Sword Pavilion, no matter how close a disciple gets to him, he'll sleep right through it, Yu Qianqi explained while rummaging through her storage pouch. Soon, she pulled out a bronze gong and a wooden mallet. She raised an eyebrow at Li Qingran. Today, senior sister will teach you how to wake up a sleeping sect master. Li Qingran's face paled. Senior sister, this doesn't seem appropriate. She could already guess what Yu Qianqi intended to do. This was outright disrespect. In Qingyan sect, This kind of offense would get someone expelled. It's fine. Li Qingran leapt onto the tree, positioned the gong right above Su Qingyan's head, and swung the mallet in a wide arc. Boom! Li Qingran instinctively shut her eyes in terror. When the echo finally faded, she cautiously opened them again, only to see Su Qingyan now sitting cross-legged, his face dark as thunder, his jaw twitching. The culprit, Li Qingran, was nowhere to be found. Oh no! Li Qingran hurriedly bowed. Sect Master, that wasn't me. It was. She bit her lip and ultimately decided not to rat out her senior sister. Let the Sect Master figure it out himself. She simply shut her eyes, resigned, and muttered, "Disciple got dust in her eyes. I didn't see anything." "Ha, you think I wouldn't know it was that damn girl Li Qingran?" Su Qingyan ground his teeth, his fists clenched inside his sleeves. "That brat is getting bolder. I'll make her clean up after the sect's guardian beast later." "Ah, that's it." Li Qingran let out a sigh of relief. Cleaning up after the guardian beast wasn't even a punishment. She had done plenty of that before, it was just a little smelly. But upon hearing her response, Su Qingyan's expression twisted. A sinister grin crept onto his face. "Hey, so it was her, huh? Ha ha ha. Good. Well done. Ha ha ha." Li Qingran was dumbfounded. She hadn't expected the sect master to trick her into confessing. Without realizing it, she had sold out her senior sister. Lowering her head, she pressed her hands together in silent apology. Senior sister, I'm so sorry QAQ. Sect master is way too cunning. Save your prayers. That brat is doomed. Su Qingyan jumped down from the pine tree, straightened his robe, and asked in confusion, "Anyway, why were you looking for me?" Li Qingran steadied herself and bowed deeply. "Sect master, my master, Senior Grand Elder Chen, is currently fighting a great demon. He said he has been poisoned and may not have much time left. Since he is a Senior Grand Elder of the Sword Pavilion, I thought I should inform you." "Master, Senior Grand Elder of the Sword Pavilion. Poisoned. What?" Su Qingyan's eye twitched. "Wait, this is serious." Chapter 83. Found the Memorial Tablet. The so-called Senior Grand Elder was just a lie Su Qingyan had told Li Qingran to motivate her to cultivate harder. In reality, the Sword Pavilion never had a Senior Grand Elder, let alone one with the surname Chen. But now what? Li Qingran's master was poisoned and dying. Leaving him alone didn't sit right with Su Qingyan. But stepping in, he didn't have the resources for that. "Qingran was informing me of this. Your idea or your master's?" Su Qingyan decided to stall and gauge the situation first. "It was my master's wish, and it is also mine." Li Qingran bowed deeply again. "Sect master, is there any way to save my master? I am willing to do anything." Su Qingyan felt his head spin. Great. Not only had he accepted a disciple, but now he had also indirectly acknowledged a non-existent Senior Grand Elder in the Sword Pavilion. Was this even appropriate? Was this right? Since the situation was getting out of hand, Su Qingyan decided to create some distance. Testing the waters again, he said, "When I joined the sect, that Senior Grand Elder had already left for a journey. I only know his surname is Chen, but I don't recall his full name." "My master's name is Chen Huaian." Li Qingran immediately supplied. "Ah, I see. Then follow me to the sect's ancestral hall. I'll check the records and see which Senior Grand Elder he was, and based on his cultivation level, we can figure out a solution." Su Qingyan's real plan. The ancestral hall only contained memorial tablets of deceased elders, along with some for those who had left the sect and were missing. If they didn't find any tablet for a Chen Huaian, he'd simply claim it was a mistake, brush the whole thing off, and then offer Li Qingran another encouraging lie to keep her focused on improving her strength. It wasn't selfishness. The Sword Pavilion simply couldn't afford distractions right now. Resources were dwindling. They barely had enough for their own people. Li Qingran wasn't sure why she needed to confirm her master's identity, but clinging to hope, she obediently followed Su Qingyan to the ancestral hall. The hall was old, but it was immaculately maintained. Li Qingran noticed a female sword cultivator sweeping fallen leaves in the courtyard. She wore plain robes, her long white hair cascading down her back. Tall and slender, she stood bathed in the morning light, her pale face glowing with an ethereal radiance. Time had left no trace on her features. Oh! For a moment, Li Qingran felt as though time itself had merged with this woman. Senior Sister Lin, Su Qinian greeted with a bow. It was the first time Li Qingran had ever seen the usually irreverent pavilion master act so proper. The woman merely nodded slightly, as if she barely noticed their presence. Su Qinian offered no explanation about her identity and simply led Li Qingran inside. The hall was filled with neatly arranged memorial tablets. Compared to the hall's dilapidated state, the tablets themselves gleamed as if they had just been placed there. Li Qingran couldn't help but think of the ethereal woman outside. The tablets must be her work, carefully maintained day after day, preserving the memory of those who had come before. Su Qinian lit 3 incense sticks, placed them in the burner, and bowed 3 times before turning to Li Qingran. We'll split up and search. Remember, do not move the tablets. You can look, but don't touch. Li Qingran nodded seriously. Understood. I won't touch anything. Good, you're well behaved, so I won't keep an eye on you. With that, Su Qinian wandered up to the 2nd floor, planning to stall for time. He was certain. There was no record of any ancestor or senior with the name Chen Huaian in the sword pavilion. Li Qingran searched carefully, but with each passing moment, she grew more anxious. Especially when she reached the section dedicated to those with the surname Chen, yet still, no sign of her master's name. Minutes ticked by. Su Qinian eventually came back down, finding Li Qingran frantically scanning the memorial tablets. Though he felt a pang of guilt, he steeled himself and said, "Well, did you find your master's tablet? If not, I must have remembered wrong. Ah, such is age, my memory fails me at times." Li Qingran didn't respond. She kept searching, even revisiting the tablets Su Qinian had already checked. Her eyes were red, her lips tightly pressed together, as if determined to check every single one. Su Qinian didn't stop her, instead patiently continuing, "Qingran, even if your master isn't one of our sect's senior grand elders, I'll still try to help him." "You don't have to. I found it." The sheer joy in her voice cut Su Qinian off mid-sentence. "What?" Su Qinian spun around, stunned. Li Qingran rushed forward, clutching a memorial tablet in her arms. Her eyes were slightly red, tears shimmering at the corners, but her face carried a look of profound relief. "Master, I found my master's tablet." Chapter 84. Isn't this 000? Hiss. This isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. Su Qinian yanked out another strand of his beard, utterly baffled. "So, sect master, is this my master's memorial tablet or not?" Li Qingran stared at Su Qinian anxiously, her fingers nervously clutching the hem of her dress. The sect master had been staring at the tablet for over 10 minutes now. Could there be some issue? Well, how should I put this? Su Qinian tore his gaze away from the memorial tablet, his expression complicated. The inscription read, Chen_N, with the middle character missing. Li Qingran's master was named Chen Huaian, but with a missing character, he couldn't be completely sure if this tablet belonged to him. However, Li Qingran's master had claimed he was once a senior grand elder of the sword pavilion. Su Qinian was completely confused. His memory told him there had never been a senior grand elder named Chen Huaian in the sword pavilion. But the ancestral hall's records suggested there had been a highly revered ancestor with the name Chen_N. The tablet was placed at the very top, an indication of great status. Since it was missing a character, and because Su Qinian had no recollection of a Chen Huaian, he had originally glossed over it. If not for Li Qingran double-checking every tablet he had already dismissed, they might have completely missed it. Could it be that, when he first joined the sect, this Chen_N had indeed left on a journey? Did his random nonsense just turn out to be true? Still in disbelief, Su Qinian took the tablet and hurried outside to find the white-clad female sword cultivator. Li Qingran quickly followed. "Senior Sister Lin, you joined the sect earlier than I did." Do you recall an elder named Chen_N? The woman in white turned at the mention of the name. Her beautiful face instantly darkened as she unsheathed her sword and whacked Su Qinian on the head with its scabbard. Who gave you permission to move the memorial tablets? Are you looking for a beating? Despite being the pavilion master of the sword pavilion, Su Qinian didn't dare resist. He simply lowered his head and endured her scolding. I do recall an ancestor with the surname Chen, Lin Yushi eventually admitted, though her expression remained indifferent. But I've long forgotten his full name. S. She carefully returned the tablet to its original place and glanced at the two younger cultivators. That ancestor left on a journey a long time ago. He was the senior martial brother of our master's master. This tablet is extremely old. The previous caretaker of the ancestral hall failed to protect it, and one day, our sect's guardian beast got in and clawed away the middle character. Su Qinian's vision darkened. So the nonsense he had spouted had actually come true. Is there any other information about this ancestor? He wanted final confirmation. Lin Yushi frowned in thought. He did leave behind a saying, engraved on the steel at 10,000 Swords Peak. You mean the inscription on the 10,000 Swords Peak steel was left by this Chen ancestor? Su Qinian was shocked. I always thought our master wrote it. I haven't been to 10,000 Swords Peak yet. May I ask what it says? I suppose there's no harm in telling you. Su Qinian stroked his beard before reciting, just 8 simple words, yet filled with overwhelming might, perfectly encapsulating the sword intent cultivated at 10,000 Swords Peak. When the Tao collapses, only the sword remains. Su Qinian shook his head, lost in admiration for the phrase's boundless arrogance. But Li Qingran only blinked, her gaze flickering with uncertainty. The words certainly carried an imposing presence, but they didn't sound like something her master would say. Her master's words always carried an ethereal quality. But that wasn't important. The past was the past. Her master had gone through countless experiences over the years. Of course, the way he spoke would change. That settles it. Su Qinian clenched his fist, sealing his conclusion. Li Qingran, your master, Chen Huaian, was not a senior grand elder, but an ancestor of our sect. Perhaps he was just an elder when he left, and since his position within the sect is hard to define now, he told you he was a senior grand elder instead. Li Qingran didn't respond. Actually, her master had never told her anything. She had asked, since your master is an ancestor of the Sword Pavilion, this matter must be handled with the utmost care. Go ask your master where he is now and what kind of poison he has been afflicted with. The Sword Pavilion will spare no expense. We will find the antidote, even if it costs us everything. Su Qinian's voice was resolute. He was all in. Forget the sect's principle of never abandoning a single disciple. Just the title Sword Pavilion ancestor alone was worth going broke over. If they managed to save this ancestor and bring him back, what did the Cangyun sect amount to? They could storm Cangyun sect with the entire pavilion. Dig out every last one of their spirit stones. Make their guardian beast mate with Cangyun sect's mother snake. Would the Cangyun sect dare say no? Would they dare? Ha ha ha. Lost in his fantasy, Su Qinian laughed like a true sword cultivator. Su Qinian, you touched an ancestor's memorial tablet. Report to the law enforcement hall and receive 100 lashes. A cold voice suddenly rang out from behind him, sending a shiver down his spine. Ah, senior sister, I am the pavilion master now, you know. Pavilion masters get punished too. Lin Yushi shut the doors to the ancestral hall with a cold glare. Or what? Are you waiting for me to drag you to the sect plaza like when we were kids? Spank your backside with a vine rod in front of all the Sword Pavilion disciples. Su Qinian's face turned green. He hurriedly grabbed Li Qingran and made his escape. He knew senior sister Lin would do it. Sect master, I'd like to visit the scripture pavilion as well. Although Su Qinian had already promised to handle the situation, Li Qingran felt it was best to have a backup plan. Her master's poisoning couldn't be delayed. If Su Qinian's efforts failed, she might still find a solution in the scripture pavilion. Go, go, Su Qinian waved her off in boredom. The scripture pavilion is at the peak of the north summit. Just remember to follow the rules. He summoned his flying sword and prepared to head to the law enforcement hall. Then, he hesitated, turned back, and fixed Li Qingran with a dark expression. Qingran, about today's events, you. Li Qingran straightened her posture, her face solemn as she cupped her fists. This disciple simply visited the ancestral hall with the sect master, glanced at the memorial tablets, and left. I saw nothing, met no one, and no one said a single word to us. This disciple also has no idea where the sect master is headed now. Su Qinian stroked his beard in satisfaction. Good girl. With that, he soared into the sky on his sword. Li Qingran let out a quiet breath of relief. She unhooked the bell at her waist, summoned her celestial crane, and flew towards the north summit. Boom, boom. That morning, Chen Huaian was still asleep when two loud thuds echoed from outside. Groggily, he opened his eyes. No way, did the game send me another free item. On the sofa, the black cat, Baji, also opened its golden eyes, a cold glint flashing within. Blood, and the scent of that little thief from before. Chen Huaian got up and opened the door. A strong stench of blood hit him straight in the face, making him frown. A blood trail stretched from the window at the end of the hallway, leading directly to his doorstep. And lying at his feet was a small, trembling figure. Dressed in a blood-stained high school summer uniform, her hair matted with dirt and gore, her face was nearly unrecognizable. A collapsed, bloodied little girl. And most importantly, he knew her. Isn't this 000? Chapter 85, Hidden Agendas. Lin Lingling. The first time Chen Huaian learned the girl's name, he immediately gave her a nickname, Triple Egg, or just 000. In his impression, she was a terminally ill case of second-hand embarrassment, a brat with a worse case of delusions than his own. But they barely had any interactions, having only met once before. So the real question was, why was this barely familiar girl suddenly at his doorstep? And, if he wasn't mistaken, she hadn't used the front door. She had climbed in through the window. This budget hotel's security system is pretty useless, huh? Looking at the bloodstains all over the floor, Chen Huaian felt his head throb. How was he supposed to clean this up? More importantly, how was he going to explain this to housekeeping? Forget it, let's get her inside first. The floor's too cold. Out of respect, Chen Huaian went back inside to put on some clothes before carrying 000 in. He had only been wearing a pair of boxers. On the sofa, the ever-vigilant Baji stiffened as he saw Chen Huaian carrying the little thief inside. Why wasn't the big boss crushing this little thief into dust? Why was he carrying her so gently? Could it be, it had attacked the wrong person before? The more Baji thought about it, the more terrified it became. What if the moment this little thief woke up, she spilled the truth? What if the big boss realized it was a demon? What if that triggered a memory awakening and he summoned endless divine lightning, reducing Baji to a pile of burnt fur? Then he'd toss it into a pot, sprinkle some scallions and cooking wine, cut it into pieces, dip it in soy sauce, and have it as a drinking snack. Was this how it was all going to end? All its efforts, all its struggles, had they been for nothing? Completely oblivious to a certain Teoti's existential crisis, Chen Huaian was busy dialing 120. Sure, his spring revival acupuncture might work on 000's condition, but this was a life or death situation. If a few needles didn't do the trick and she died, wouldn't he be the prime suspect? Balancing the phone between his neck and shoulder, he carefully placed the girl on the sofa. The moment 000 lay down, her head lolled to the side, and blurg, a mouthful of blood spewed onto the floor. Holy shish, did she get into a full coverage crash? Chen Huaian was stunned. As soon as the call connected, he quickly described 000's condition to the doctor. Quote, her injuries are critical. You need to administer first aid immediately. I'll guide you through it. The doctor instructed him to stop the bleeding and perform CPR. Lifting her blood-stained school uniform, Chen Huaian saw deep, jagged wounds on her chest and abdomen, claw marks. The flesh was mangled, the skin flayed open. They definitely weren't human-made. Without hesitation, he grabbed the bedsheets and tore them into strips, quickly dressing her wounds. At this point, he knew there was no way he could keep staying at this hotel. So why even bother worrying about the mess? Next is CPR. Following the doctor's video tutorial, he positioned his hands over her chest and pressed down. Crack. PFF'd. 000 spat another mouthful of blood straight onto the ceiling. Chen Huaian. Wait, when did his strength get this ridiculous? One push and he broke her ribs. Poor 000 had already fractured 3 ribs from her earlier injuries. Now, thanks to Chen Huaian, she had 3 more broken ribs, perfectly symmetrical on both sides. This isn't working. I need to use acupuncture. Seeing her barely breathing, Chen Huaian couldn't afford to hesitate. Legal consequences be damned, if he didn't act now, she was dead. He swiftly pulled out his silver needles. For some reason, his movements felt sharper today, faster, more precise, and steadier than ever before. In just a few moments, he had already targeted the necessary acupoints to stop the bleeding. Then, he moved on to stimulating bone regeneration. How did it work? He had no idea. Maybe it boosted stem cell production or something. Quote. The big boss is personally treating her. Who is this guy? Baji watched in horror as Chen Huaian expertly administered the acupuncture. It had officially lost all hope. The fact that the big boss was personally administering acupuncture said everything. Baji shrank into a corner, quietly awaiting its miserable fate. I've done everything I can. The rest is up to fate. Chen Huaian carefully moved 000 off the sofa, right in front of Baji. Baji, the big boss was sentencing it to death. But, did it dare make a move? It did not. Weird. Why is Baji acting so timid today? Chen Huaian glanced at the black cat, which was cowering in the corner, but didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just scared. Cats were naturally sensitive animals, always wary of unfamiliar scents. Less than 10 minutes later, Lin Lingling groggily regained consciousness. The severe blood loss and hunger left her dizzy. But the moment her eyes caught sight of Baji, the intense aura of demonic energy jolted her completely awake. Her entire body convulsed in terror. With Baji staring at her, Lin Lingling felt a cold chill run down her spine. She didn't dare move. It was that demon, the one that had blasted her out the window. Her breathing turned shaky as despair filled her chest. Her mission last night had gone terribly wrong. She had received intel that the target was just a B-rank demon. Turned out, that info was outdated. It wasn't just one demon, it was a whole nest. That B-rank black rat demon had already evolved to A rank, and had spawned an entire litter of C and D rank offspring. She might have handled a single A rank demon. But a whole swarm? No way in hell. She had barely escaped with her life. Only to flee straight into another death trap. Now she was truly doomed. Just as she thought that, the black cat took a step closer. Its golden eyes locked onto hers, unblinking. This was it. She was going to die. She was going to be eaten, her body torn apart, leaving no trace behind. Lin Lingling whimpered internally. She was still just a student. Just a young girl. She hadn't even gotten to fly on a sword yet. How could she die here? Mia. A soft, gentle meow snapped her out of her panicked thoughts. Her wide, fearful eyes darted slightly. The black cat was very close now. And then, lick. Lin Lingling's eyes bulged. It licked her. The big bad demon licked her. Her vision swam. She nearly fainted again. Yo, you're awake. A ridiculously handsome face suddenly popped into view. Chen Huaian smirked as he saw Baji licking Lin Lingling's face. Huh, looks like Baji really likes you. It never licks my face. Lin Lingling was shocked. What the hell? This demon was called Baji. Baji shuddered from head to tail. Licking the boss's face. That's a trap. No way in hell. This beast still wants to live a few more years. No way it's falling for that. Thank you, for saving me. Lin Lingling stammered as she stared at Chen Huaian's stupidly handsome face. Her mind was still a chaotic mess. Her body felt weak, so she simply shut her eyes, trying to collect her thoughts. No need to thank me. The ambulance is almost here. And as if on cue, a group of paramedics burst into the room, hotel staff trailing behind them. In just a few seconds, Lin Lingling was secured onto a stretcher. Baji, still on edge, finally relaxed. Good. She's leaving. Forever. It wasn't until she was inside the ambulance that Lin Lingling's mind cleared a little. Chen Huaian's relationship with Baji was unclear. But one thing was certain. Chen Huaian was not some evil, ruthless monster. Perhaps the talismans on him were connected to the Black Cat. In the demon-slaying bureau, there were awakeners who had formed pacts with demons to gain power. This situation wasn't impossible. Wait, her bloodstains. Those black-furred rat demons could track her by scent. Oh no, oh no no no. Lin Lingling struggled to sit up, desperately trying to warn Chen Huaian. But the next second, two nurses shoved her back down. Then, click, an oxygen mask was strapped over her face. Patient is in critical condition. She's seizing, return to the hospital for emergency treatment. The lead doctor issued a strict order. The ambulance sped off with sirens wailing. On the stretcher, Lin Lingling stared blankly at the pale ceiling. A single tear of deep regret slipped from the corner of her eye. Big boss, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Check out our playlist for more amazing novels. Continue. Chapter 86, A Love-Struck Sword Heart. Disciple of 10,000 Swords Peak, Li Qingran, requests an audience. Standing before the tightly shut gates of the scripture pavilion, Li Qingran bowed with cupped hands. After the lesson she had learned from the ancestral hall, she no longer dared underestimate anything, no matter how rundown it appeared. Or rather, was it possible that the more dilapidated something was in the sword pavilion, the more mysterious and unfathomable it became? 10,000 Swords Peak. It's been a long time since I heard of a disciple from there. Enter. Crash. With a loud crack, the wooden doors of the pavilion fell off their hinges and slammed onto the ground. A raspy, aged voice drifted out from within. Li Qingran stared at the fallen doors for a moment, then silently stepped inside. Since she was part of the sword pavilion now, she had to get used to its peculiarities. Doors that fell downward. As long as they opened, that was all that mattered. The interior of the scripture pavilion was dimly lit, but one figure stood out, an elderly man with long, white hair. He stood in the center of the hall, clad in a dark green robe. His shadow stretched behind him into the darkness. His hair was tied in a ponytail, his narrow eyes sharp like an eagle's. One was covered by an eye patch, while the other had an unusually small pupil, with the whites of his eyes taking up most of the space. Combined with his deep-set features and aged face, he exuded a fierce and intimidating aura. Li Qingran bowed once more. As she lowered her gaze, she noticed something unusual. Hanging from the elder's waist was not a sword, but a withered wooden branch. The old man's name is Zhang Yuanmo, the elder introduced himself. I am the elder who oversees the scripture pavilion. Unlike the other elders, I do not conduct lectures in the main plaza. You may simply call me Elder Zhang. Elder Zhang. Zhang Yuanmo nodded slightly, his hands clasped behind his back. There are rules to follow within the scripture pavilion. The first and second floors are open to all. However, from the third floor onward, one must undergo the trial of the sword heart to proceed. If you cannot find a suitable technique, I can recommend one for you, but you only get one recommendation. Without hesitation, Li Qingran replied, Elder Zhang, I'm looking for a detoxification pill recipe. Preferably one that can cure all poisons. Do you have any recommendations? Zhang Yuanmo's brow twitched, his expression darkening. You came to the sword pavilion's scripture pavilion, looking for a pill recipe. You would waste your one and only recommendation on an alchemical formula. Under the weight of his piercing gaze, Li Qingran felt a chill run down her spine. But she still steeled herself and said, yes, I need it to cure my master's poison. Your master is not from the sword pavilion, correct? Who is he? He was once a senior grand elder of the sword pavilion. What? Zhang Yuanmo's voice shot up 8 octaves. Li Qingran earnestly explained, I have already confirmed this with the sect master. My master was the first-generation Peak Lord of 10,000 Swords Peak, Chen Huaian. However, he left the sect to travel many years ago. Even the sect master's memory of him was vague, but we did find his memorial tablet in the ancestral hall. So that's it, the one who inscribed the words on the 10,000 Swords Peak stele. Precisely. Zhang Yuanmo's stern expression softened significantly. The reason he had been displeased earlier was his suspicion that Li Qingran was being used by outsiders. After all, the Sword Pavilion's Scripture Pavilion held the most ancient manuals and texts in the entire Cangyun Realm, second only to the Holy Lands. And the pavilion was open to all Sword Pavilion disciples. Even those who had external masters could enter, pass the trials, and take techniques with them, without ever being forced to return them. In the past, there had been cases of spies sent by rival sects to infiltrate the Sword Pavilion and steal techniques, only to leave afterward under flimsy excuses. Though sect master Su Qinian didn't care much about it. Zhang Yuanmo did, especially when those same spies used their one and only recommendation to have him personally select techniques for them, only to leave the sect right after. Disgusting. But upon learning that Li Qingran's master was once a senior grand elder of the Sword Pavilion, his attitude shifted. No one in their right mind would dare lie using the sect master's name. And besides, his eyes were still sharp. He could tell at a glance whether a disciple was lying. In his view, Li Qingran had gone from a suspicious thief to a devoted and filial disciple. Wait a moment while I think. Zhang Yuanmo sat cross-legged on a meditation cushion, closed his eyes, and began deep contemplation. Li Qingran, understanding the gravity of the moment, did not move or fidget. She simply waited quietly against the wall. Moments later, the entire scripture pavilion trembled violently. Outside, powerful winds howled, sending leaves spiraling into the air. Inside, countless spectral scrolls flickered into existence around Zhang Yuanmo. Then, from the elder's head, a golden, translucent figure emerged. A perfect replica of himself. The spectral scrolls began whirling around the golden projection in a chaotic dance. An out-of-body young spirit. Li Qingran blinked, murmuring to herself. This elder was no joke. A cultivator had to reach the nascent soul stage to even attempt separating their young spirit. It was said that once the young spirit left the body, it could comprehend all things in an instant. And now, Zhang Yuanmo was using it to search every single scroll in the scripture pavilion at once. But even among nascent soul cultivators, very few could do this. Reaching nascent soul was merely the threshold. Those who could freely and stably project their young spirit were all ancient monsters within their respective sects. Roughly one incense stick's time later, the strange phenomena within the scripture pavilion gradually faded. The winds outside settled. Zhang Yuanmo opened his eyes. Deep within them, a trace of exhaustion flickered. This was the first time he had searched for a pill recipe. It was far harder than locating a sword manual. I searched through 337,600 scrolls within the scripture pavilion and found something useful on the 5th floor. Standing up, he led Li Qingran up the stairs to a shimmering light barrier. The scroll is called Dankson Annotations. Within it, there is a pill formula that may cure all poisons. However, the rules of the scripture pavilion cannot be broken. If you wish to retrieve the scroll, you must pass the trial of the sword heart on this floor. Seeing Li Qingran pressing her lips together, he assumed she was nervous. He offered some encouragement. As long as your sword heart is steadfast, and your Tao unwavering, the trial is not difficult. Go forth. Before he even finished speaking, Li Qingran had already unsheathed her Su Xian sword and stepped in. Zhang Yuanmo clasped his hands behind his back, shaking his head. He estimated that she would need several hours. The trial of the sword heart was a mirage realm where one had to battle a reflection of themselves at the same cultivation level. Most disciples were crushed at first, forced to question their own convictions before gradually overcoming the trial. This girl was smart, but she'd probably need at least 2 hours, right? Crack! A shattering sound rang out. Zhang Yuanmo's eyes widened in disbelief as he watched Li Qingran step out of the broken light barrier. Her fair face was perfectly composed as she entered the 5th floor. So fast. Zhang Yuanmo immediately reconnected with the formation to inspect the trial logs. His expression turned strange. So this little girl's sword heart is entirely fixated on her master. She didn't hesitate. She just swung her sword and instantly destroyed the mirage. Gods, she's like an unstoppable force. Then, shaking his head in disbelief, he muttered. Has this girl even considered that her master is at least several hundred years older than her? Chapter 87. Can I take a look? That damn mirage had the audacity to claim her feelings for her master were fake. And that her master was beyond saving. Just thinking about it made Li Qingran furious. There was nothing to discuss. If it tried to stop her from saving her master, she'd just cut it down with a single sword strike. The scroll Elder Zhang had retrieved was already glowing faintly, making it easy to spot even in the densely packed shelves of the 5th floor. Li Qingran carefully picked it up and flipped through its contents. It was a treatise on alchemy, split into 2 volumes. The first contained techniques for refining pills. The second recorded 3 pill recipes. Golden scale skin refining powder. 100 herb detoxification pill. Dragon tendon bone tempering elixir. Among them, the 100 herb detoxification pill was said to neutralize all poisons, even surpassing the formulas of Lingxi Valley. However, it was incredibly difficult to refine, especially since it required over 100 rare spirit herbs. Still, Li Qingran was delighted. A heavy burden was lifted from her heart, and she smiled. Good thing I didn't go to Lingxi Valley. If I had, I never would have found a way to cure Master's demon poison. You may leave once you've memorized the scripture, Elder Zhang called from outside. Li Qingran returned the scroll to its place and walked to the entrance. This is a transcript of Dengxin annotations, Elder Zhang said, handing her a jade slip. It will self-destruct in 12 hours. You must memorize its contents before then. Will that be an issue? No problem. She accepted the slip, thanked Elder Zhang, and left the scripture pavilion. Standing atop the north summit, she gazed at the rolling clouds on the horizon. Stretching her arms lazily, she finally felt a sense of relief. Next, I need to gather the necessary herbs, and tell Master the good news. That'll cheer him up. She giggled to herself. Sect Master Su Kinian would surely help as well. If everyone worked together, they would definitely find a cure for her master's demon poison. Once he recovered, he could return to the sword pavilion. And then, she could see him every day. As that thought lingered, the tips of her ears turned bright red. Quickly shaking off the embarrassment, she rang the bell at her waist. A celestial crane soared over from the cliffside. Hopping onto its back, she decided to visit 10,000 Swords Peak first to see the steel her master had left behind. After that, she'd return to Luoxia Peak. Meanwhile, in a police station interrogation room. Officer, listen, I barely even know that girl. Oh, then why was she in your hotel room? And she's underage. I was trying to stop her from bleeding out. So that's why you took her clothes off. How else was I supposed to dress her wounds and perform acupuncture? It's not like Wait, hold up. Do you think I have some weird thoughts about a kid? Oh, so you do acupuncture. Are you a doctor? No. Aha, please, continue. The officer casually flipped open his notebook, gesturing for Chen Huaian to keep making things up. Chen Huaian was speechless. Shortly after Lin Lingling was taken away by the ambulance, the police had arrived. Most likely, the hotel staff had reported the scene. Given the bloodstains everywhere and the fact that it involved an underage girl, it was no surprise that they handcuffed him and took him in immediately. I'm telling the truth, Chen Huaian sighed. Just wait until she wakes up. You can ask her yourselves. Oh, we will, but until then, you'll have to sit tight right here. The officer's expression remained skeptical, practically screaming, I wouldn't believe you if my life depended on it. At that moment, the interrogation room door swung open. A bearded middle-aged man stepped in. He flashed his badge at the officer, whose face immediately stiffened. The officer quickly saluted and stepped aside. This case is now under our jurisdiction, the man muttered to him. The officer gave a sharp nod before exiting the room. The bearded man turned to Chen Huaian, his gaze scrutinizing. Chen Huaian, is it? His eyes flicked between the case files and Chen Huaian's face, and he hesitated. What the hell? How is this guy so ridiculously handsome? It was unnatural. Something was off. He was already inclined to believe 000's bizarre descriptions of Chen Huaian, because the moment he laid eyes on the guy, he felt uneasy. This was not a normal person. And after visiting the hotel scene earlier, he had felt it. An immense aura of demonic energy behind the sealed door. It was a miracle that the hotel staff had the good sense to keep the doors shut. Otherwise, that thing might have escaped. The charms on the doors and windows were real. They were the only thing keeping that demon trapped inside. And yet, the source of those charms was a complete mystery. I'm innocent. Chen Huaian sighed again. Thinking this guy was just another police officer, he tried to explain, I woke up this morning and saw that girl covered in blood at my doorstep. As a decent citizen, I couldn't just leave her there to die, right? The bearded man let out a dry chuckle. Chen Huaian, I completely believe you. Really? Of course. Chen Huaian brightened. Then can I have my phone back? It had been half a day since he'd seen Li Qingran baby, and he was getting antsy. The bearded man was puzzled but still handed him the phone. Then, he watched as Chen Huaian eagerly tapped away on the screen. Despite the fact that, from his perspective, the screen was completely black. The more he watched, the deeper his confusion grew. This phone isn't normal. Could it be a demonic artifact or a spiritual object? Since the spiritual Qi revival, all sorts of supernatural things had begun to appear. Some of them were demonic artifacts, objects corrupted by demonic influence, capable of turning humans into demons. Others were spiritual objects, possessing various mysterious powers. These were highly sought after by cultivators. If Chen Huaian's phone was a spiritual object, it would explain a lot. The charms on the hotel doors. The barrier keeping the demon trapped. It all made perfect sense. There was a simple way to test this theory. A bound spiritual object could only be used by its designated owner. But if it was unbound, anyone could use it. After some thought, the bearded man casually stood up and walked over. With a friendly smile, he said, Chen Huaian, that's quite an old model of a phone you've got there. You've been using it for years, haven't you? Then, extending his hand, he asked, mind if I take a look? Chapter 88. So, does he know or not? Check my phone. Chen Huaian blinked in confusion. Shrugging, he exited his game and handed the phone over to the bearded man. He didn't have anything shady on his phone, so what was there to hide? Besides, he assumed this was just part of the interrogation process. A righteous man feared nothing. And he, as someone so upright it was borderline suspicious, had nothing to worry about. The bearded man, Luo Saihu, casually flipped through the phone. Sure enough, the screen displayed content normally. It wasn't shrouded in darkness like it had been in Chen Huaian's hands. Like a layer of fog had been lifted. Looks like this really is a bound spiritual artifact. This kid's luck is off the charts. Internally, Luo Saihu confirmed his suspicions. Outwardly, he pretended to inspect the phone for a bit longer before handing it back. Hey, turns out it's the same brand as mine, he commented offhandedly. Though, it looks like the battery drains pretty fast. I'll probably have to replace mine soon. Right, Chen Huaian immediately resonated with this complaint. Mine dies so fast too. If I could change it, I would. Ah. Luo Saihu narrowed his eyes. The phone's screen was clearly visible just now. But the moment it returned to Chen Huaian's hands, it became fogged over again. And more importantly, what did he just say? If I could change it. That implied he wanted to replace it, but couldn't for some reason. That confirmed it. This phone was a bound spiritual artifact. Forget the demon in the hotel room, just the fact that Chen Huaian himself was in possession of this artifact made him a prime target for recruitment. By the way, Huaian, I stopped by your hotel earlier. Luo Saihu smoothly changed the topic. That charm on your door, where'd you get it? Looks pretty authentic. Oh, that, Chen Huaian scratched his head, laughing. I stuck it on for fun. It's an in-game item. An in-game item. Yeah, super realistic, right? I even did an experiment to see if it worked. Too bad it's just some nerdy nonsense, haha. Bingo. Luo Saihu's mind clicked. The game, the phone, and the charms. Everything lined up. When he had checked Chen Huaian's phone earlier, there had been no game installed. And this guy's phone was too clean, not even a single photo in his gallery. Those charms were real, but he clearly didn't know how to use them properly. The Tianmen Mountain Wolf Demon incident had likely been triggered by one of those charms activating automatically. That also explained why the demon in the hotel room didn't dare step outside. It was trapped by the charms. Everything made sense now. Still, there was a problem. Chen Huaian was too difficult to classify. And how much should he be told about the reality of the world? Unlike that sword-wielding teenager from before, who was blatantly overpowered and hard to handle, Chen Huaian himself didn't seem to have any combat ability. Instead, he was just the key to activating his spiritual artifact. But Luo Saihu wasn't about to let go of such a valuable asset. Looking at this easily deceived college student, Luo Saihu debated for a moment. Then, he couldn't resist the urge to recruit him. Clearing his throat, he said, Ahem, Huaian, my man, those charms of yours really interest me. Not gonna lie, I love collecting stuff like that. So, would you be willing to sell me some? You want to buy my charms? Chen Huaian squinted at Luo Saihu in suspicion. An ordinary decorative charm, and this guy wanted to buy it. That was weird, but mine are all crumpled. Oh, that's fine, that's fine. Luo Saihu quickly reassured him. I'm more interested in their cultural significance. Doesn't matter if they're wrinkled. He flashed a sincere smile. Chen Huaian only became more suspicious. If he was really studying cultural history, would he seriously want crumpled charms? Something isn't right. Narrowing his eyes, he decided to test the waters. I don't even know how to price them, he said casually. Why don't you make an offer? Luo Saihu hesitated. 1,000 yuan. Chen Huaian stared silently at him. His heart skipped a beat. Was he being too stingy? Fine, 10,000 yuan. Luo Saihu quickly corrected. I really like them. Chen Huaian still didn't speak. Something was off. A guy who seemed to be a law enforcement officer had suddenly stopped interrogating him and was now fixated on his charms. This was beyond suspicious. Could it be that these charms were actually useful? Had he been using them wrong this whole time? Luo Saihu gritted his teeth and raised his offer again. 100,000 yuan. That's my limit. At this point, even he wasn't sure anymore. Did Chen Huaian actually know the charms' true value? Or was he just messing with him? Deal. Chen Huaian's face lit up with a bright smile. As soon as the money hit his account, he slapped a charm onto Luo Saihu's hand. Luo Saihu flinched. His knees nearly buckled. Because in his hand was a thunder talisman, a charm capable of summoning lightning from the heavens. If it activated, he would be instantly electrocuted. Fortunately, nothing happened. Luo Saihu let out a silent sigh of relief. Huaian, buddy, got any more? Could you sell me a few extra? He hoped to buy multiple. One to submit to HQ, one to study, and a few for personal use. But Chen Huaian simply shook his head. I like these charms a lot myself. Maybe I'll sell you more in the future. Luo Saihu had no choice but to give up for now. Outside the police station, Luo Saihu and Chen Huaian parted ways. Before leaving, Luo Saihu handed him a card. Huaian, if you ever run into anything strange, come find me at this address. Chen Huaian glanced at the card. It featured a bikini-clad woman with a list of services. Student models, office ladies, home visits, satisfaction guaranteed. Call now. XXXXXXXX. Oops, wrong one. Luo Saihu awkwardly retrieved it and replaced it with another. Dragon Soar Internet Cafe 24/7 operation. Featuring RTX 9080 GPUs, private booths, and VIP rooms. Address: XXXXXXXX. Chen Huaian. So this guy wasn't a high-ranking officer, he was an internet cafe owner. No, this was too suspicious. He clearly had the authority to dismiss the police and let him go. That meant the internet cafe was just a cover identity. Got it, Chen Huaian said smoothly, slipping the card into his pocket with an unreadable smile. Then, without another word, he flagged down a taxi. His phone was dying, and he needed to head back to the hotel to charge it. He also needed to start looking for a new place to stay. Luo Saihu watched the taxi drive away and scratched his head in frustration. What was with that meaningful look just now? Did Chen Huaian actually know what was going on? Or was he completely clueless? He groaned, running his hands through his hair. So, does he actually know how to use the charms or not? Chapter 89. Disciple Won't Let You Die. Back at the hotel, Chen Huaian let out a small sigh of relief. Nothing in his room had been touched. Good. He hated it when people messed with his stuff, whether it was the police or anyone else. At the sound of the door opening, Baji poked its head out from the corner. Seeing that it was Chen Huaian, the black cat immediately let out a meow and began its paw-licking performance. Meanwhile, the big green fish in the wash basin peeked its head out slightly, as if secretly listening in on the room's conversation. Chen Huaian plugged in his phone to charge. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he began sorting through the chaos in his head. Something's wrong with the world. Hearing his muttered words, Baji's paw froze mid-lick. Slowly, its gaze lifted in horror. Has he finally realized? Ever since I came back from Tianmen Mountain, things have felt off. That mutant wolf died way too strangely. 000 kept asking me weird questions, and then today she almost died right in front of me. The police took me in for questioning, but then I ran into that bearded guy, clearly someone with a lot of power, yet he was pretending to be an internet cafe owner. And his behavior, completely sketchy. As Chen Huaian's thoughts connected the dots, his eyes shone brighter and brighter. Meanwhile, Baji's expression grew more and more terrified. The big boss is about to awaken his memories. The air in the room darkened, as if something had blinded the heavens. This terrifying presence. It could overturn the sky itself. Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers, X-Men. Ha ha ha. Baji. What the hell was the boss talking about? Baji swiped the sock Chen Huaian had thrown on its face and, realizing that nothing was actually happening, resumed licking its paws. That girl, Lin Lingling, dressed in a school uniform, carrying a long rifle, and wandering around deep in the mountains. That was weird enough. But then, she was the one who killed that mutant wolf. And that bearded guy, even weirder. He has enough authority to control the police, but he's clearly not part of law enforcement. He even gave me a mysterious address. It screams secret organization. Chen Huaian's eyes lit up as he clenched his fist. I've got it. 000 and Beardy are agents of a secret organization. They must have discovered that my cancer cells have transformed me into a superhuman, so they deliberately made contact. Anyo. And Beardy offering 100,000 yuan for my talismans. That was his way of leaving a lasting impression on me. As for 000, he rubbed his chin in thought. Why exactly had she been covered in blood at his doorstep? That part still didn't make sense. Whatever. They've already found out about Tumor Superman. They'll definitely come looking for me again. With his, think too much. Just let it go, mindset, Chen Huaian shrugged and logged into his virtual girlfriend game. Master, you're finally here. The moment he went online, Li Qingran, who had been meditating on a prayer mat, immediately opened her eyes. She tilted her face up, looking toward the ceiling, her smile bright and soft. She could feel her master's warm gaze upon her. Ah, only my virtual girlfriend can heal my soul. Chen Huaian gazed at the blushing, sparkling-eyed Li Qingran on his screen, feeling his heart melt into warm, soft fluff. Master, so much has happened while you were gone. Li Qingran excitedly began counting on her fingers. She talked about the morning lessons at the sword pavilion. How the teachings were clear and easy to understand, how the elders and direct disciples weren't arrogant, and how, aside from the occasional brutal fight for seating, everyone generally got along well. Then she moved on to the cunning sect master, and how senior sister Yu Qianqi had tricked him into waking up. Every time she got to something funny, she would burst into laughter. Oh, and master, these are all the gifts my senior brothers and sisters gave me. Li Qingran proudly displayed the pile of items on her bed, meticulously explaining each one's function, who had gifted it, and why. Question mark. Looks like you really like the sword pavilion. Chen Huaian was relieved. After all the bullying she had endured at Cangyun sect, it was clear that she was much happier here. Of course. It's a wonderful place. Everyone treats me so well, Li Qingran said with heartfelt gratitude. As expected of Master's former sect, after just a few days, it already feels like home. Chen Huaian awkwardly rubbed his nose. Yeah. The sword pavilion was definitely not his former sect. That was just a big fat lie the sect master had fed her. Oh, right, master, I told the sect master about your poisoning today. Li Qingran sat up straight, her expression suddenly serious. Question mark. Oh, what did he say? Chen Huaian was curious. How would the sect master wiggle his way out of this one? He took me to the ancestral hall to confirm your identity, and we found your memorial tablet. Chen Huaian. I also joined 10,000 Swords Peak. And the inscription on the stele, when the Tao collapses, only the sword remains, that was written by you. He, even though master is thousands of miles away, I still managed to choose your mountain as my sect. Unable to maintain her serious face, Li Qingran grinned cutely. She truly believed this was fate. She was master's disciple. And she had chosen his mountain. This was destiny. Chen Huaian. Wait, no, this doesn't make sense. They actually found his memorial tablet. And now he was canonically the founder of 10,000 Swords Peak. At this rate, wouldn't the game eventually reveal that he actually was some long-lost senior Grand Elder of the Sword Pavilion? Even if this game was released in 2034, it would still be the most cliché, overdramatic, soap opera-level storyline ever. Master, the sect master asked which province you're in and what your current cultivation level is, so he can send over detoxification pills. Chen Huaian froze. Province. Bro, I'm in Asia. What the hell was he supposed to say now? Fortunately, the game provided dialogue options. Question mark. I am not in Cangyun Realm, but trapped in a small pocket dimension. Question mark. Actually, I am not a senior Grand Elder of the Sword Pavilion. Question mark. It's useless. I am already dead. A great demon has taken over my body, Question mark. Consume a sound transmission talisman to freely respond. After a moment of silence, Chen Huaian mimicked the game's tone and said, I am not in Cangyun Realm. I am trapped in an alternate space, surrounded by endless demon beasts. It is too dangerous for you to reach me. However, if you prepare the detoxification pills, I can use my divine abilities to retrieve them from your location. A trapped space, full of demon beasts. Li Qingran's face turned pale, her breath hitching. So master had been suffering alone in such a place. Her eyes burned, moisture gathering. But she clenched her fists. Her voice resolute. Master, don't worry. I found an all-poison antidote in the scripture pavilion. I will refine the best detoxification pill for you. Her determination blazed. Tears slid down her cheeks. Her fists trembled as she swore. I will not let you die. Chapter 90. You want to divine the future too. Master, may I ask, what is your current cultivation realm? As soon as Li Qingran regained her composure, she immediately started gathering crucial information. Question mark. This master. Chen Huaian paused. Since this was a free response, he could technically say whatever he wanted. In the Cangyun Realm, the highest cultivation stage was the Mahayana Realm. Once a cultivator surpassed their tribulation, they would ascend to the immortal realm. Claiming he was at the Mahayana Realm would be too ridiculous. So, Chen Huaian hardened his resolve and made a bold choice. Question mark. This master is currently at the void-piercing realm. The moment those words appeared, both the game world and the real world fell into a stunned silence. Baji, QAQ? Question mark. T the boss is a void-piercing realm powerhouse. Question mark. Wait, if he were truly at the void-piercing realm, he would have already seen through my true form. Question mark. Then, what exactly is the boss's real cultivation? Why would he say that? Baji curled into a ball, trembling in the corner. The void-piercing realm was the stage right before Mahayana. Cultivators at this level could already sense the heavenly tribulation they would face upon reaching Mahayana. This was why it was also known as the tribulation stage or the insightful stage. At this level, a cultivator had to contemplate their path forward. If their Tao heart was not firm enough, they would almost certainly die under the tribulation lightning. And how did Chen Huaian know this? Because he had just randomly activated a heavenly divination. The heavens trembled. Countless sect elders and reclusive cultivators were thrown into shock. Immeasurable heavenly lord. It has been 2 days since that supreme expert last performed a heavenly divination. I thought something had happened to him. Honestly, life felt a bit empty without it. What did he divine this time? I swear. Damn it. Notify all sect disciples to be extremely careful in their actions, especially those infiltrating righteous sects. That all-seeing cultivator has returned. In the law enforcement hall, where Li Qingran was currently getting flogged, he suddenly stopped mid-punishment and stared at the sky for a long time. But Li Qingran didn't care about the chaos unfolding in the world. She was deep in thought about the significance of the void-piercing realm. A realm beyond fusion, yet beneath Mahayana. At this stage, a cultivator could analyze Tao laws, condensing the power of an entire world within their mud pill palace, creating a miniature inner world. Only Holy Land leaders were supposed to have this kind of terrifying strength. Yet even a cultivator of this level was trapped in that alternate space. It was proof of how dangerous the demonic beasts within must be. If that was the case, then her master's poison must be exceptionally difficult to cure. A shadow loomed over her heart. She was already preparing for the possibility that the 100-herb detoxification pill might not work. But no matter what, she had to try. Understood, Master. Li Qingran rose to her feet, bowed toward the ceiling, and declared. I will go discuss this with the sect master immediately. Then, clutching her bell, she hurried out the door. Chen Huaian scratched his head as he watched her rush toward the sect master's hall. Only for her to find it empty. Li Qingran furrowed her brows and anxiously paced in circles. After some thought, she suddenly turned and rode her celestial crane to the law enforcement hall. Sure enough, she found sect master Li Qingran standing at the entrance. A row of disciples stood before him, faint traces of whipping marks on their backs. Faint murmurs of conversation drifted through the air. Ahem. Now, regarding today's events, you all. Sect master, we saw nothing. Yeah, we heard nothing either. You were just inspecting the law enforcement hall today, nothing more. Exactly. You definitely did not come here to get yourself whipped 100 times. He. Li Qingran's face darkened instantly. His eyes narrowed, settling on the last disciple who had spoken. Then, with a cold smirk, he said, laughing, are you showing disrespect to your superior? Go get yourself 100 lashes. The disciple's grin immediately vanished, and reappeared on Li Qingran's face instead. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Li Qingran waited patiently for the disciples to leave. Only when Li Qingran was about to fly away on his sword did she finally descend on her celestial crane. She rushed up to him, bowed deeply, and said, Sect Master, I have an important matter to report. Oh, Qingran, what is it? Li Qingran had already noticed her earlier, but to avoid suspicion, he pretended he had only just seen her. With a fake, sword cultivator-esque smile, he stroked his beard. Sect Master, I have been to the scripture pavilion. I obtained an ancient pill recipe that may help Master. Li Qingran nodded knowingly. Elder Zhang already informed me, he said with a grin. That pill formula comes from an ancient alchemy master. His pills were famous for their simple refinement methods, complex ingredients, and incredibly effective results. The fact that you acquired his recipe, this is a tremendous opportunity for both you and your master. Hearing this, Li Qingran's face lit up. She cupped her hands and added. Master also informed me that he is not in the Cangyun Realm, he is trapped in an alternate space and cannot receive direct assistance. However, he possesses a great divine ability that will allow him to retrieve the detoxification pills from my location. Oh, Su Qinian's eyebrows lifted in genuine surprise. So he's not even in Cangyun Realm. That means his cultivation level must be. Master is at the void-piercing realm. Silence. A single leaf drifted onto a sword hilt. Plop. Su Qinian's sword fell to the ground. He hurriedly bent down to pick it up. Void-piercing. And no wonder. His voice trembled slightly, an unmistakable hint of excitement in his tone. A void-piercing realm senior Grand Elder. If they rescued him, then the Sword Pavilion could walk sideways across the Cangyun Realm. As long as the Holy Lands didn't interfere, they would be invincible. No more fighting over resources. No more beast-related problems. Their guardian beast wouldn't have to rip up the back mountain's grass just because it was in heat. They had to save him, at any cost. Qingran, tell me all the ingredients required for the 100-herb detoxification pill. With a serious expression, Su Qinian declared. Saving our fallen senior Grand Elder is our duty as Sword Pavilion cultivators. We shall spare no effort. Chen Huaian. Okay, sure, this was touching and all. But calling a senior Grand Elder fallen sounds a little inappropriate, don't you think? Su Qinian immediately led Li Qingran to the medicine garden, planning to verify the required herbs. And if they couldn't identify them, he raised a jade tortoise shell and vowed. If the medicine garden elders don't know these herbs, then I shall divine the future, even if it costs me my lifespan. Chen Huaian, watching from outside the game. Oh, so you wanna divine the heavens too? Alright, let's see what happens next. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 91. Living Up to Expectations. Before Su Qinian brought it up, Li Qingran had no idea that the Sword Pavilion even had a medicine garden. She had always assumed that every disciple just carved out a small plot of land near their cave residences, growing their own herbs separately. But once they arrived at the medicine garden, she was stunned. Unlike the dilapidated ancestral hall and the run-down scripture pavilion, the medicine garden looked brand new, well-maintained, vibrant, and flourishing. Standing at the entrance, Su Qinian hesitated. Clearing his throat, he called out toward the garden. Elder Lu, ahem, are you here? For a moment, the medicine garden fell into silence. Then, get lost. A thunderous roar exploded from within. Boom. The garden doors swung open violently, and a gale-force wind erupted outward, causing the very air to distort and tremble. The fierce wind swept through the garden, bending and nearly snapping countless herbs. Su Qinian, however, casually summoned a windshield barrier, looking completely unfazed, as if he were used to this. Once the wind settled, he dismissed his barrier with a wave and turned to Li Qingran. Qingran, that loudmouth just now is our medicine garden elder, Lu Yuanqing. Don't be fooled by his temper, he's actually a pretty decent guy, Qingran. When he didn't get a response, Su Qinian turned to look. Only to see Li Qingran clinging to the edge of a cliff. Apparently, she had been blown away by the gale and had just climbed back up, her once sleek, silky hair now a complete bird's nest. Ah, this. Su Qinian awkwardly scratched his head, chuckling. Oops, I guess my barrier was a bit too small. Didn't cover you in time. At the entrance of the garden, an elderly man had already appeared. Despite his white hair, he had a childlike complexion, a kindly face, and an aura of wisdom. However, when his sharp, piercing eyes settled on Su Qinian, they burned with undisguised fury. Sect Master Su, I respect your title, but if you come to steal spirit herbs again, I will fight you for 300 rounds, to the death. Li Qingran stared at Su Qinian in shock. Su Qinian ignored her expression and simply laughed. Elder Lu, I'm not here to take spirit herbs today. Today, Stealing. Elder Lu narrowed his eyes. I'm the sect master. Taking some herbs. Stealing. Elder Lu emphasized again. Fine, fine, I'm not stealing herbs today. Giving up, Su Qingyan shamelessly admitted. This disciple here wants to refine a 100-herb detoxification pill, but there are some ingredients I don't recognize. We came to ask for your expertise. And then steal my herbs, right? Elder Lu remained skeptical, shooting Su Qingyan a cold glare. I'm warning you, this garden is the lifeline of the Sword Pavilion. It is the foundation of our sect's survival. No matter what excuse you come up with, if you steal, I will fight. He unsheathed his sword with a sharp clang, his spiritual energy surging, his robes fluttering from the force. Before the situation escalated, Li Qingran stepped forward and knelt down on both knees. Elder Lu, I urgently need to understand the 100-herb detoxification pill's formula to cure my master's poison. Please, I humbly request your guidance. If she let these two bicker any longer, they were definitely going to start fighting. She had already figured it out. The sect master had stolen herbs from the medicine garden way too many times. And since the medicine garden was a separate department from the main sect, Elder Lu held absolute authority here. His status was on par with Su Qingyan's. Elder Lu examined Li Qingran carefully. Seeing that she was a well-mannered, charming young woman with an earnest expression, his anger softened slightly. You are quite filial. Who is your master? Elder, my master is a senior grand elder of the Sword Pavilion. Elder Lu, ah. As someone who had joined the Sword Pavilion later, Elder Lu wasn't familiar with its ancient history. All he knew was that Su Qingyan held the highest rank. He had never heard of any senior grand elders or sect ancestors. If such a person had existed, the Sword Pavilion wouldn't be so poor. He turned to Su Qingyan for confirmation. Su Qingyan nodded. That senior grand elder left on a journey long ago. We verified his identity at the Ancestral Hall. And no, I'm really not here to steal herbs today. If you don't steal today, you'll just steal tomorrow. Elder Lu snorted, but his hostility faded. He approached Li Qingran with a much gentler expression and said, All right, recite the pill formula for me. After she carefully listed all the ingredients, she nervously watched Elder Lu's reaction. Thankfully, his expression remained calm. Unlike Su Qingyan's, who had been completely baffled earlier. See, every other elder in the Sword Pavilion is reliable except for the sect master. She had just reached this conclusion in her mind. Elder Lu stroked his beard in thought. Then, pulling out a thick record book, he began flipping through it, occasionally shaking his head, occasionally nodding and muttering to himself. After a long while, he finally closed the book and looked up. I recognize all the herbs in the 100-herb detoxification pill. More than half of them are already available in the medicine garden. The rest can be purchased from Lingxi Valley. Quote, Li Qingran's eyes brightened. Then that means. However, quote. Hearing that one word, her heart clenched. 2 of the required medicinal primers are extremely difficult to obtain, dragon tongue apricot and blood ripple citrus. Those are ancient era spirit plants. I doubt they still exist in the Cangyun Realm. If that's the case, then we'll have to search for them in the Zhongzhou secret realm. Su Qingyan immediately took over the conversation, reassuring Li Qingran. The Zhongzhou secret realm will be opening in less than a month. That place is full of ancient ruins. The entire Sword Pavilion will be participating in the exploration. We're bound to find those 2 ingredients there. No need to worry. Indeed, Elder Lu nodded. During the ancient era, alchemy sects were abundant. Back then, resources were plentiful, and any faction with a bit of heritage could establish a sect. Among them, Medicine King Valley was the most prestigious. If you can find its ruins within the Zhongzhou secret realm, it will surely contain these 2 herbs. Li Qingran stepped back, bowed deeply, and declared, Sect Master, Elder Lu, though my strength is meager, I wish to enter the Zhongzhou secret realm as well. She understood, her senior brothers and sisters would be seeking their own opportunities in the secret realm. She couldn't expect them to prioritize finding her herbs. So she had to go herself. She had to find those 2 ancient era medicinal primers. Su Qingyan and Elder Lu exchanged glances. They had wanted to refuse. After all, she was the disciple of the senior Grand Elder. Her safety was paramount, but seeing her determination, they hesitated. Finally, Li Qingran relented. Fine. As long as you reach the Foundation Establishment minor completion stage before the secret realm opens, I will allow you to go. Li Qingran lifted her head, her snow-bright eyes meeting Li Qingran's. She declared firmly, without hesitation. Disciple Qingran will not disappoint. Chapter 92, Who wouldn't be anxious? So, after all that, you were just waiting for me here. Chen Huaian shook his head as he watched the plot unfold. His main quest was to increase Li Qingran's survival rate in the Zhongzhou secret realm. At the time, he had wondered if he could prevent Li Qingran from going at all. But now, the storyline had locked her fate. She was destined to go, and the reason? To refine the 100-herb detox pill for him. Well, it wasn't entirely unexpected. Still, it felt pretty nice to have someone this concerned about him. Chen Huaian suddenly thought of his ex-girlfriend. After seeing him make money from live streaming and even appear on a variety show, she actually had the nerve to message him on Green Bubble, asking to get back together. Screw that. Back when he was hospitalized, she hadn't visited him even once. Reality proved that even a virtual girlfriend provided more emotional value than a living, breathing person. Shaking his head, Chen Huaian suddenly caught the scent of blood on himself. That was when he remembered. After all the chaos earlier, he still hadn't changed clothes. This hotel's a no-go now. Gotta take a shower and get out of here. He quickly packed up his things, grabbed a few fresh outfits, and headed for the bathroom. Baji stared at the neatly packed suitcase. Even though it still didn't fully understand human matters, it could tell, boss was about to leave. Please, let boss forget I exist when he leaves. Baji prayed silently in its heart. Sure, staying here meant it could absorb spiritual chi every day, but life was just too stressful. It had lost weight. Out there, all it had to do was find a quiet place to lay low. As the world's spiritual chi continued to recover, there'd be more than enough to go around. By then, even without boss's spiritual plants, it could still achieve true spiritual chi freedom. If it stayed any longer, it feared it might end up with that thing they talked about on TV. Right, depression. Baji slinked into an inconspicuous corner, trying to shrink its presence as much as possible while dreaming of a peaceful life. Hospital. Although Lin Lingling wasn't yet an official demon slayer, the bearded officer still rushed to the hospital out of concern for his soon-to-be subordinate. He also wanted to find out exactly what had happened. He remembered that the mission she took was supposed to be fairly simple. Given her abilities, she shouldn't have been severely injured. A miracle. An absolute medical miracle. Incredible. I've never seen a human with such insane self-healing abilities. The bearded officer halted at the hospital room door. Something was off. What was going on inside? He leaned in to listen. Can you believe this? When she was brought in, she had 3 broken ribs on each side of her chest. Now, all 6 are almost fully healed. And get this, despite being covered in blood, we just ran tests, and she isn't even anemic. Can you believe that? You know what this means. Her red blood cells and stem cells regenerate way faster than a normal person's. Should we report this to the director? This girl could be a breakthrough for medical science. No can do. She's got a special status. I got a call just before coming in, told us to keep our mouths shut. I don't know what these big shots are trying to cover up all the time, but something's seriously off. Wait, Lin Lingling had that strong of a self-healing ability. Why didn't she ever mention it before? What a hidden gem. To officially join the Demon Slayers, one had to meet 2 conditions. First, they needed to reach the Master rank. This required handling 5 incidents of any difficulty level. Second, they had to join voluntarily. Of course, as the head of the Tianfu Demon Slayers, he had the authority to waive the first requirement if he saw promising talent. Like Lin Lingling, honestly, not many awakened individuals wanted to join the Demon Slayers. Why? Because, in the past, there wasn't anything particularly tempting to lure them in. Plus, There was a rule requiring at least one mission per month. Each mission meant facing danger. Most ordinary people who suddenly gained powers. They got cocky. They craved freedom. But after seeing how terrifying demons could be, that same ego made them value their lives even more. Money. Some awakened could make easy cash just by using their abilities. The demon slayer's salary meant nothing to them. And cracking down on those misusing their powers. Not so simple. What could they even charge them with? If someone used their power to pick up antiques on the cheap and resell them, that wasn't exactly a crime. It's not like they were harming society. Could you really call it illegally obtaining assets? Recruitment had been an uphill battle from the start. Lin Lingling was an exception. Her parents were divorced, her father didn't care, and her mother didn't love her. She barely had enough money to attend school. What she lacked most was money. So when he offered her financial support, this girl, who often didn't even have enough to eat, was moved to tears and swore to join the demon slayers. However, according to the initial assessment, her strength was only at the white rank, and she had no self-healing abilities. Did she awaken this regenerative power after surviving this recent danger? No point in eavesdropping any further. The bearded officer coughed twice and walked in, flashing his credentials to the doctors. All right, this is no longer your concern. Leave. The doctors exchanged glances before exiting the ICU. The bearded officer pulled out a syringe and injected it into Lin Lingling's arm. Less than 10 minutes later, she slowly regained consciousness from the anesthesia. Boss. Lin Lingling blinked groggily at the bearded officer. He casually raised the now empty syringe. High-speed cell regeneration serum. Cost me 10 merit points. You owe me. Thank you. Lin Lingling bit her lip, truly grateful. For each mission, depending on the difficulty, a demon slayer could earn anywhere from 1 to 100 merit points. She only had 3 merit points, not nearly enough to buy such a high-grade healing serum. No need for thanks. It's an investment. The bearded officer sat by her bed, lighting a cigarette. Now, tell me, how did an ordinary mission land you in this condition? Faulty intel. Lin Lingling clenched her teeth in frustration. No idea how long that mission was on the board, but damn it, the report said there was only one grade of black rat spirit. When I got there, it wasn't one, it was a whole swarm. They reproduced. The bearded officer raised an eyebrow. Exactly, 2 adult black rat spirits, leading a whole litter of smaller ones. Lucky for me, they weren't the type that eats flesh, or I'd be dead by now. Seeing Lin Lingling's angry expression, the bearded officer awkwardly scratched his nose. As the head of the demon slayers, it was his responsibility to keep intel updated. But could he really be blamed? They were severely understaffed. He had just gotten back from a mission himself, hadn't even had time to sit down properly. At least he had taken the chance to test out the new origin reversion technique issued from above. And he had to admit, it was damn effective. Before, he used to be cautious when facing grade A demons. But now, with the origin reversion technique, he could go full force. That dog demon he fought earlier had been running for its life. The demon slayers would only grow stronger from here. Thinking that, his guilt eased a little. Yeah, tonight, he'd grab a copy of the origin reversion technique for Lin Lingling. That should at least boost her survival rate. So, how many did you kill? He asked, steering the conversation away. The mother. And all the little ones, Lin Lingling replied, expressionless. The father lost his mind after that. I couldn't beat him. The bearded officer paused. Well, yeah, if it were him, he'd lose his mind too. Still, he reassured her, you did well. I'll count this mission as complete. I'll have people handle the cleanup. By the way, you used the scent masking potion, right? Lin Lingling's face went pale. Her still groggy mind suddenly realized what she had forgotten. The bearded officer narrowed his eyes. Why aren't you saying anything? I thought this mission was easy. I was sure I'd get the kill, so I didn't buy the potion, Lin Lingling admitted, looking like she was about to cry. The bearded officer's face darkened. Which meant, on Chen Huaian's side. Boss, we need to save him. Outside, a few doctors had been eavesdropping. Then, bang, the ICU door flew off its hinges, embedding itself into the opposite wall at an angle. All they saw was a pitch-black blur darting out the 8th floor window. Chapter 93. This is what you get for cosplaying. Hotel. Baji was dozing off to the sound of running water from the bathroom. Suddenly, a thick, resentful aura filled the air. It was demon energy, and it was getting closer. A demon's coming. Baji leapt onto the table and peered out the window. Sure enough, the bushes below rustled violently, as if some wild beast was charging through. The shaking stopped near the drainage pipe. The next second, a massive black rat, about the size of a calf, shot out like an arrow and scaled the hotel's exterior wall in just a few leaps, reaching the 2nd floor. Hey, it really is coming straight here. Baji let out a cold laugh. That rat demon was overflowing with resentment. It was probably related to that human cub from earlier. The human must have left some blood traces near boss's room. The rat demon must have tracked it here. Too bad it never should have come. Coming here is a death sentence. Forget that boss is already at the void fragmentation stage. Just the talismans on the door and windows alone will turn it into mincemeat. Kahahe. Baji felt no sympathy for a demon dying in front of it. It belonged to the demon kind but wasn't truly one of them. In ancient times, humans lumped it together with ordinary demons, but it was something far beyond that, a true-born fiend, a being that transcended demons entirely. In fact, in some ways, it was a natural predator of demons. After all, compared to puny humans who could barely fill a gap between its teeth, demon kings, those towering beings spanning dozens or even hundreds of meters, were far more appetizing. TCH, but with boss here, I can't reveal my identity. Otherwise, that rat demon would have been a nice little snack for my recent cravings. Baji licked the corner of its mouth, its eyes flashing red for a brief moment. Then, the bathroom door creaked open. It quickly suppressed its hunger. Meow. Oh, Baji, almost forgot about you. Chen Huaian stepped out of the bathroom, fully dressed, and smiled when he saw Baji. Even though Baji had an almost non-existent presence, after taking care of it for a few days, he had grown fond of the little guy. Besides, Baji was incredibly well behaved. Unlike other cats that caused chaos by parkouring all over the place, Baji barely made a sound. And those eyes, it always looked so melancholic, like it had the worst luck in the world. Just looking at it somehow put him in a good mood. Baji. Damn it. It had been so focused on the rat demon that it forgot to find a hiding spot. Chen Huaian grabbed a shoebox and held it up against Baji for size comparison. Realizing it was too cramped, he swapped it for a storage container instead. Then, without giving Baji a chance to react, he lifted it and gently placed it inside. N.S. Sorry, Baji, you'll have to bear with this for now. Once we're past this, I'll buy you a proper cat carrier, Chen Huaian said apologetically as he closed the lid. Baji sat inside, feeling utterly cold inside. But it quickly calmed itself down. No big deal. This is actually an opportunity. This storage container wasn't easy to carry around, so boss would probably just hold it directly. Which meant, as soon as boss left the room, Baji could jump out and escape. The world will be mine again. Kahahe. The sky's the limit. The ocean's my playground. Just as this wonderful thought formed, the lid opened again. A massive green carp was tossed inside. Baji. The green carp. The lid slammed shut again. Chen Huaian's voice drifted from outside. Ah, this fish is a hassle to carry around. Might as well leave it in the box for Baji to eat. Baji and the green carp locked eyes. The carp flapped twice, looking at Baji with big, teary fish eyes, filled with desperate pleading. Forget it. I'm escaping soon anyway, might as well let this one go. Baji forcibly suppressed its hunger and convinced itself. A cat of my size shouldn't be able to eat such a big fish anyway. Just hold back a little longer. Just a bit more, and freedom would be within reach. The next second, Chen Huaian spoke again. I'll take the talismans off the door and windows too. Those cost me 200,000 yuan. Damn, what a scam. Slap. A hand pressed down on the storage container. Baji's heart nearly jumped out of its chest. Trembling, it slowly looked up. Through the thin lid, it could just barely make out 2 rectangular paper strips being pressed onto the top of the container. They were talismans, fresh ones, just taken off the door and window. And Boss had casually slapped them onto the storage box. Ha, I was far too naive. Baji stared at the lid at a 45-degree angle, eyes welling up with tears. This is Boss we're talking about. How could he not see through my little scheme? Even if he didn't notice, that blinding fortune of his would still suppress me. There's no escape. Absolutely no escape. Meanwhile, Chen Huaian remained completely unaware that his casual actions had just sent Baji into a state of existential crisis. He had finished packing. Clothes and that potted plant went into the suitcase, while the storage box, now tightly taped, was secured on top. As for himself, he wore an old, faded tracksuit. It was a bit old-fashioned, but he was used to it. Not that it stopped random girls from asking for his green bubble contact whenever he stepped outside. However, just as he opened the door, a scream rang out from nearby. Ah, monster, monster. It was the cleaning lady's voice. Turning his head, Chen Huaian saw the woman had collapsed on the floor, curling up against the wall, trembling in fear. In the hallway, with its plush red carpet, a massive black furred rat was steadily approaching. Its coarse black fur scraped against the wall, making a sharp creaking noise, proving just how tough its body was. It didn't even glance at the terrified cleaning lady. Its blood-red eyes were locked solely on the figure standing at the end of the hallway. Chen Huaian. 1 step, 2 steps, moving like creeping claws. Like the devil's approach. A mutant rat. Chen Huaian stared at the monstrous rodent. Strangely, he felt no fear. His mind subconsciously compared it to Taoist Qingxian and found this rat was nothing. It wasn't even as threatening as the mutant wolf he had encountered at Tianmen Mountain. But logically, he figured he should grab something for self-defense. Too late to think. The black-furred rat suddenly lunged. Scree! It zigzagged wildly, screeching. A black whirlwind tearing through the hallway at terrifying speed. Too fast. Chen Huaian had no time to dodge. On instinct, he raised both hands to shield his face, his mind going completely blank. But the rat never struck. Hearing no impact, Chen Huaian slowly lowered his hands. The massive black rat had come to a dead stop, 2 meters away. Even though they were different species, he could clearly see the sheer terror in the rat's trembling eyes and shaking body. It's afraid of me. Chen Huaian steadied himself, confirming his judgment. Underneath the rat, a puddle of yellow liquid was quickly spreading. It pissed itself. He took a few steps forward. Even when he stood right in front of the black-furred rat, it didn't dare to move. Seriously, you're scared of me, that's it. Kahehe. Chen Huaian swelled with confidence, standing with his hands on his hips in front of the trembling rat. Completely oblivious to the fact that the rat's horrified gaze was actually fixed on the toppled storage box behind him. So this is the fear caused by a difference in life force level. Wow, this is the biggest rat I've ever seen. He circled around the rat, observing it like some kind of rare specimen. It stood frozen, just like those stiff zombies in dramas with talismans stuck on their foreheads. A mischievous idea struck him. Pulling a Thunderfire talisman from his pocket, he pressed it to the rat's forehead. Kahehehe. Today, I shall make you cosplay as a zombie rat. Chapter 94. At what cost? Just as the talisman was about to stick to the black-furred rat's forehead, the rat suddenly seemed to snap out of its daze, instinctively shrinking its head down, so far that it actually retracted into its own chest cavity. But it was too late. The talisman had already left Chen Huaian's hand, following his intent with pinpoint accuracy and slapping directly onto the rat's forehead. And at that exact moment, at the far end of the hallway, the bearded officer finally arrived, only to witness the scene unfold before his eyes. OSH*T. Stop. His pupils shrank in horror, a cold chill running from his spine straight to the top of his head. Too late. Where the talisman met the rat's forehead, a glowing sphere the size of a coin appeared, crackling with electricity. The sizzling sound of arcing energy grew louder and brighter. Without hesitation, the bearded officer grabbed the limp hotel maid, rolled to the side, and crashed through a nearby door, tumbling into a room just as. Boom! A pillar of lightning tore through the hallway. The entire hotel shook with the force of the explosion. Heart still pounding, the bearded officer glanced at the splintered remains of the door he had just broken through. The explosion had originated a full 50 meters down the hallway, yet even from that distance, the shockwave had shredded the door into pieces. The sheer power of that talisman, terrifying. The hallway was a tunnel-like structure. Once an explosion occurred inside, the blast spread indiscriminately, making escape nearly impossible. **T, did Chen Huaian get blown to pieces? He peeked out cautiously. The entire hallway was now engulfed in thick smoke, the air reeking of burnt flesh. Several room doors had already caught fire. At the very end of the corridor, Chen Huaian sat slumped against the wall, head bowed, unmoving. His suitcase and storage box lay in front of him. To his left, the hallway was a charred ruin, blackened meat splattered across the walls and floor in a grotesque, radial pattern. To his right, within a 2-square-meter radius, everything was untouched. The only unscathed spot in the entire hallway. That was the power of the mysterious talisman. The bearded officer had witnessed its true might. Anxious, he hurried over to Chen Huaian's side, carefully reaching out to check for any signs of breathing. But before he could touch him, a charred hand lifted and pressed against his own. The bearded officer froze. The young man in front of him still had his head lowered, his burnt fingers still faintly smoking. A beam of light fell across his sharp, almost unreasonably handsome side profile. And on those lips curled a sinister, knowing grin. "Hey, he, ha ha ha. So that's how it is." Chen Huaian lifted his head, looking directly at the bearded officer. His lips parted in a wide grin, wisps of black smoke seeping through his clenched teeth. "So, I wasn't a tumor-ridden superhero after all." His smile widened, voice dripping with glee. "I'm the Lightning King." The bearded officer. "So, this world is already broken, isn't it?" "Yeah, you could say that. What the news calls mutant beasts aren't actually mutations, they're demons. There are many of them, and more keep appearing. Even some of those famous supernatural cases and serial killings in recent years. Most were caused by malicious spirits and demons. Some were rogue awakened humans who lost control. Raw. Oh. Outside the hotel, now surrounded by police cars, the bearded officer and Chen Huaian sat crouched on the curb, watching the city traffic flow by. "You smoke?" The bearded officer offered a cigarette. "Nope." Chen Huaian shook his head. "I'm Luo. Just call me Bearded Luo." Luo lit his own cigarette, exhaling smoke as he muttered, "My ability is devour and assimilate, but I haven't decided on a target yet." Chen Huaian's thoughts were still a tangled mess. He pointed to himself. "So I'm an awakened." "Yup." Luo took a drag, squinting as he exhaled. "I was planning to reach out to you eventually. Just hadn't decided whether to tell you the truth about this world. Compared to other awakened and demons, your physical body is weak. But one thing is undeniable, your awakened ability is incredibly powerful." "You mean, the talismans?" Chen Huaian looked down at his charred hand. The moment the talisman exploded, he had been flung back by the force. Yet despite the sheer destruction it had caused, it hadn't killed him. It had obliterated the black-furred demon rat, but all he had suffered was a minor burn on the hand that had held the talisman. "Your talismans come from that mobile game, don't they?" Luo asked. Chen Huaian was momentarily stunned. "Wait, you can see the game, uncle." "No, I can't." "Only you can." Luo shook his head, exhaling a ring of smoke before continuing, "It's your innate spirit artifact. Only you, and only you, can use it. No one else can control it. But a spirit artifact that's completely invisible to others. That's pretty rare." Innate spirit artifact. Chen Huaian mulled over Luo's words. Up until now, he had assumed his changes were due to some kind of cancer-induced evolution. But thinking about it carefully, Hadn't his life started shifting dramatically ever since he got the virtual girlfriend game? Without that game, he wouldn't have gone climbing at Mount Highs. If he hadn't climbed Mount Highs, how could he have encountered all those opportunities? I know someone with an ability similar to yours, Luo suddenly said. His initial assessment put him at soldier rank, grade A. Codename, Divine Brush. His spirit artifact is a brush, whatever he draws becomes real. But depending on how logical or overpowered the creation is, he has to pay a price. If the cost is too high, it could even take his life. Luo's gaze darkened slightly as he focused on Chen Huaian. Creating something from nothing, that's one of the hardest things to do. And your talismans, your spirit artifact generates them, doesn't it? Chen Huaian nodded. That wasn't wrong. Besides the talismans, he had also received a protective talisman, a string of spirit stones, and a potted plant. No wonder no matter how fast he ran to the door, he never caught sight of the mysterious delivery person. There had never been a hacker. Never been a courier. The virtual girlfriend game, his innate spirit artifact, had simply created those items out of thin air. Then, what's the price? Luo's eyes bore into Chen Huaian, a trace of urgency in his voice. He needed to know what it cost to generate such powerful talismans. This wasn't just about Chen Huaian's Awakener classification. It was about the future of the Tianfu demon slayers. Chen Huaian met Luo's gaze, opened his mouth, then fell silent. Does it cost money? Somehow, he had a bad feeling about that answer. If Luo was right, if this world was about to be overrun by demons, if this was about to become an era of awakeners, then money would mean nothing to them. A man without sin may still die for carrying treasure. If money was all it took to buy these talismans, then what was he? A walking loot chest. What if they decided to experiment on him? What if they locked him up and forced him to mass-produce talismans every day? What if someone tried to steal his spirit artifact? Luo said that an innate spirit artifact could only be used by its owner, but was that really true? Chen Huaian didn't want to assume the worst about people. But his entire life had taught him otherwise. If people were truly trustworthy, he wouldn't have spent his days scraping by on a meager pension. If people were truly trustworthy, his ex wouldn't have cheated on him. If people were truly trustworthy, his college roommate wouldn't have fought him for the poverty aid scholarship. So, the price is my lifespan. Chen Huaian stared into Luo's eyes. Not a single muscle on his face twitched. Not a flicker of hesitation. Not even the slightest change in heartbeat. That was the answer he gave. Chapter 95, The Multitudes of Life. Lifespan. That's such a heavy price. Luo's mouth hung open, and the half-smoked cigarette slipped from his fingers onto the ground. A sudden wave of guilt hit him. The talisman he had used, one that Chen Huaian had traded his life for, had only cost him 100,000 yuan. At the time, Chen Huaian probably hadn't even realized its true value. Looking back now, it felt like he had deliberately tricked him. Wait, how do you know the cost is lifespan? Luo frowned. I remember you didn't even know these talismans could be used before. Chen Huaian had already prepared his answer. With a flawless, unwavering expression, he said, that's true. I didn't know at first. As for how I confirmed that the cost is lifespan. He casually lifted his pant leg. Underneath, his skin was covered with dense, tumor-like bone growths. Luo's breath hitched. To be honest, I'm a terminal cancer patient, Chen Huaian said matter-of-factly. But a week ago, I was still in the mid-stage of cancer. Luo's mind blanked for a second. Then, as realization dawned, his face twisted in shock. So, you're saying that using those talismans accelerated your cancer? Exactly. Chen Huaian nodded. The doctors said they've never seen cancer spread this aggressively. And conveniently enough, the rapid deterioration started right after I began exchanging for talismans. Then, how long do you have left? Who knows? Chen Huaian chuckled lightly. If I'm lucky, maybe 6 months. If not, 1 month. Luo's entire brain crashed. It was impossible to reconcile, this brightly smiling, outrageously handsome young man was actually a dying man. But those horrific tumors, they proved it was real. This wasn't a joke. *T, I'm such a bastard. Luo mentally slapped himself. He was the head of the Tianfu demon slayers, and yet he had cheated a terminally ill patient out of a priceless talisman, for a mere 100,000 yuan. Forget his own conscience, if the other regional demon slayer divisions found out, wouldn't they roast him alive behind his back? Huaian, brother, I owe you an apology, Luo blurted out, trying to ease his guilt. I shouldn't have tricked you into giving me a talisman. It's fine, Chen Huaian waved him off casually. I still have more, anyway. I was already terminally ill, destined to die. What's a little more lifespan loss? No. Luo said nothing, staring at Chen Huaian in silence. And yet, his guilt only deepened. I'll transfer you another 100,000. Great. Before Luo could even process what had happened, Chen Huaian had already whipped out his phone, QR code ready for payment. Luo. After the transfer, the air between them felt noticeably more sincere. Huaian, what's your plan from here? My plan. Chen Huaian and Luo both stared at the bustling traffic ahead. Truthfully, his plan hadn't changed at all, keep making money to top up the game. Before, he had been willing to spend money on virtual girlfriend just because he wanted to. Now that he knew it was an innate spirit artifact, he was even more willing to spend. After all, what if the game someday offered an item that could cure his cancer? And beyond that, was the world inside the game actually real? If it wasn't, then why did his virtual girlfriend seem so vividly alive? But if the game's world was real, then why hadn't that civilization already surpassed Earth's by an unimaginable degree? A basic grade Thunderfire talisman was already this terrifyingly destructive. What about an immortal grade talisman? Or even higher level ones? Wouldn't just one of them have the power of a missile or even a nuclear bomb? It didn't make sense. If a three-dimensional world could dominate a two-dimensional one, then why hadn't Cangyun Realm already obliterated Earth? And another thing, the game had main quests, storylines, and dialogue choices. What kind of real world operates like a scripted RPG? If it were truly real, then shouldn't he be an actual god, capable of controlling its fate? If he really had that kind of power, he'd already be immortal by now. Everything about Cangyun Realm felt more like a game. So, Chen Huaian was now certain that Virtual Girlfriend was, in fact, his innate spirit artifact, just as Luo had called it. As for whether the cultivation world inside the game was real, he still wasn't convinced. Seeing is believing. Of course, Chen Huaian hoped Li Qingran was real. But sometimes, hoping too much was a dangerous thing. It meant that if reality turned out to be different, the mental cost of disappointment would be unbearable. Luo assumed Chen Huaian was simply lost, unsure of what path to take. He understood that feeling well, many awakeners had felt the same way. So, he patted Chen Huaian's shoulder. This world is only going to get more chaotic. Everything we've sworn to protect could shatter at any moment. On the sidewalk, a group of schoolchildren held hands, singing a nursery rhyme. On a park bench, a young couple embraced, lost in a passionate kiss. Sunlight stretched across an elderly man carrying a basket of groceries. A delivery driver, waiting behind him, let out a resigned sigh, forced to slow down. Chen Huaian watched these scenes play out. And Luo's voice murmured beside him. Brother Huaian, why not join the demon slayers? I can introduce you to awakeners with healing abilities. Maybe they could help with your cancer. The demon slayers aren't like before, we have techniques now, like breath cultivation. Think of it like the cultivation methods in novels. It allows us to absorb spiritual qi and strengthen our bodies. Right now, only the demon slayers have access to it. But, Luo took a deep breath, I don't want you to join just for the benefits. I want you to join for a greater mission. To protect our homeland, to protect humanity, to defend our peaceful way of life. Luo stole a glance at Chen Huaian. This was a standard recruitment speech, one the demon slayers had been trained to deliver. Usually, at this point, most awakeners would show some reaction. Especially young men like Chen Huaian. This was the kind of hot-blooded rhetoric they loved to hear. But Chen Huaian's face remained completely blank. "Thank you for saying that," he said, smiling as he scratched his head. "And thank you for the invitation." Then, still smiling, he said something that wasn't funny at all. "You know, Uncle Luo, my parents died in a forest fire when I was a kid. The government was supposed to give me 200,000 yuan in compensation, but by the time I actually got it, due to all sorts of complications, it had shrunk to 20,000 yuan. I struggled to survive. I thought that if I just got into college and graduated, I'd finally make it. Then I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The hospital didn't care. They just asked, 'Do you have insurance? Do you have money?' If not, they told me to go find some first. No money, no treatment. My girlfriend cheated on me. When she found out I had cancer, she dumped me without hesitation." Luo hesitated, his voice strained. "So, you think this world is unfair?" "No," Chen Huaian shook his head. "I think this world is very fair. If you can't afford treatment, you wait for death, that makes sense. If compensation money never reaches the victims, that's just normal bureaucracy. If a girlfriend leaves her boyfriend because he's terminally ill, well, who could blame her? Then why?" Chen Huaian exhaled softly. "It's just that. When I was at my lowest, this world never embraced me. So if you're asking me to turn around and embrace the world now, I'd find that absolutely disgusting." Luo met his gaze. The light in Chen Huaian's eyes flickered, on and off, like a candle in the wind. And yet, despite standing under the warm glow of the sun, Luo couldn't shake the feeling that this young man was already completely dead inside. "Uncle Luo, what you're protecting is your world. But my world isn't worth protecting." At the end of the street, Chen Huaian's figure grew smaller as he walked away, dragging his suitcase behind him. Just before disappearing into the crowd, he turned back, flashed a smile, and waved goodbye. Then, without hesitation, he vanished, blending into the faceless sea of humanity. Luo sat in silence on the steps, lighting cigarette after cigarette. Even now, Chen Huaian's final words still echoed in his ears. "I won't be joining the demon slayers. At least not now. I don't see a reason to, and I don't believe in your so-called mission. But if you ever need my help, feel free to ask. I don't know if I'll be useful, but I'll consider it." The traffic light changed from red to green. Luo stubbed out his cigarette and disappeared into the moving crowd. He didn't return to the Demon Slayer's headquarters. He just wandered, to see the people who lived under the same sky, yet existed in entirely different worlds. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 96, It's All Real. Crap, I totally forgot. Chen Huaian had just settled into his new place, a duplex apartment near the wetland park with a monthly rent of 2,000 yuan, when the realization hit him. Didn't that old man say that killing demons comes with bounty rewards? I haven't joined the demon slayers, but as a freelance demon hunter, I should still be able to claim the money, right? He had no idea how much that black-furred rat was worth. A demon that week probably wasn't too valuable. Maybe a few thousand yuan, at most. Whatever. Demons are everywhere now. Even if each one is only worth 1,000 or so, as long as I kill enough, the money will pile up naturally. Just thinking about this made Chen Huaian excited. He could finally make money in a way that suited him. He didn't need to join the demon slayers to claim bounties at Longtang Internet Cafe. Freedom, profit, and extra perks. What could be better than that? Just as he was enjoying this thought. Ring ring. His phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello, who's this?" "Brother Huaian." A familiar voice came through. "Uncle Luo, how'd you get my number?" "Oh, I saved it when the security bureau checked your phone, not important. I'm calling to tell you that I've arranged for a healer to look at your cancer. 3 days from now, come over." "Wait, what? But I never joined the demon slayers." "Doesn't matter. I can't just sit back and watch you die, can I?" I already call you, brother. Isn't it a bit rude to trouble someone else like this? It's free. Alright, I'm in. Chen Huaian agreed instantly, without a trace of hesitation. As long as it was free, nothing else mattered. Then meet me the morning after tomorrow, 9 a.m., 3rd floor of Longtang Internet Cafe. Luo sounded like he already knew exactly how to handle Chen Huaian. His voice carried the faintest trace of amusement. Got it, no problem. They also discussed the bounty for the black-furred rat. Turns out, Chen Huaian had completely underestimated it. The bounty was a whopping 20,000 yuan, and that was only because the demon had been blown to bits, making it unrecoverable. If the corpse had been intact, the bounty would have doubled. The money would be transferred to Luo after the claim was processed, and he would send it straight to Chen Huaian. Alright, that's it. I'm hanging up. Luo ended the call without saying much else. He was still walking through the busy city streets. But as he moved through the crowds, he started to see things more clearly. Chen Huaian refusing to join the demon slayers was disappointing, but if he could show him that humanity still had warmth, still had kindness, then one day, Chen Huaian would be moved. One day, he would join the demon slayers. Tisk, tisk, the older the wiser. Damn, I'm a genius. Luo patted himself on the back for his brilliance. His mood, which had been a bit low, suddenly lifted. His thoughts drifted to another key recruit, the swordsman prodigy that Elder Li was hoping to bring in. Chen Huaian might be a lost cause for now, but that sword kid, we can't afford to miss him. He's the future of Tianfu. Luo clenched his fist. Chen Huaian had too much baggage, a tragic past, terminal cancer, a cheating ex. But surely, that sword kid wasn't also cursed with a sh*t family, a dying body, and a two-timing girlfriend. Right. If the world is really that ridiculously coincidental, I'll eat sh*t while doing a handstand. Man, there really are a lot of good people in the world. Chen Huaian put down his phone with a sigh. Too bad those good people only started showing up after he became an awakener. If they had appeared before that, maybe he really would have been touched. He plugged in his phone to charge, then quickly tidied up his new place. The first thing he did was take the talismans off the storage box and stick them on the door. Before, they were just decoration. Now that he knew their real power, he treated them like landmines against demon intrusions. Next, he opened the storage box. Inside, Baji looked miserable, its entire body limp, eyes half-lidded, completely drained of energy. Probably suffocated in there. I'll give you an acupuncture treatment later. Chen Huaian lifted Baji out and placed it aside before reaching in to grab the motionless green carp. He figured it had already kicked the bucket. But the moment his fingers touched its tail, the green carp suddenly flipped into the air, performing a flawless carp leap half a meter high, nearly scaring Chen Huaian out of his skin. Holy sh*t, is this fish sentient? He stared at the glaring, wide-eyed fish lying on the floor, its gaping mouth opening and closing frantically as if it were cursing him out. It had been out of water for nearly 3 hours. From the hotel to his rental apartment, with an extra hour wasted on house hunting and bargaining. And it still wasn't dead. Not only that, it still had so much damn energy. Is this thing a demon? Chen Huaian narrowed his eyes and pulled a talisman from his pocket. Luo had told him that abnormal creatures were most likely demons. And if not demons, then evil spirits. Either way, the solution was simple, just kill it. Minimum bounty, 20,000 yuan. This dumbass fish. Baji glared daggers at the green carp. If it hadn't been weakened by the talisman explosion, it would have squashed this stupid fish already. The green carp froze, instantly playing dead. Its bulging fish eyes rolled back, its entire body stiffening as it began to emit the unmistakable smell of salted fish. Why does it look half dead again? A last burst of energy before dying. Chen Huaian raised an eyebrow, grabbed the completely limp green carp, and tossed it into the bathroom bathtub, filling it halfway with water. Only when he saw it floating belly up, barely breathing, did he finally relax. Guess it really was just a dying twitch. At least it's not actually dead. He put the talisman away. I'm not a bloodthirsty man. If you manage to survive, I'll spare you. No fish stew tonight. However, the moment he closed the bathroom door, inside the bathtub, the green carp flipped over immediately, its eyes burning with determination. Then, it frantically gulped down water, chugging so fast that bubbles overflowed the entire tub. Meow. When Chen Huaian returned to the living room, Baji was licking its paw while meowing at him, looking noticeably better. Good kitty. Hungry. I'll get you something nice. Seeing that Baji was back to normal, he decided against acupuncture and instead ordered a bag of cat food on Michuan. He collapsed onto the sofa, finally letting his mind settle to sort through his chaotic thoughts. Meanwhile, Baji let out a sigh of relief. As expected, Boss sealed the doors and windows again. There's no escape. Absolutely no escape. At this point, it had resigned itself to fate. As for why it didn't want acupuncture, it had already faked a limp on one leg. If it got stabbed again and actually became lame, what then? Would it have to crawl around dragging both hind legs? That sounded like hell. Chen Huaian lined up all the items he had received from Virtual Girlfriend on the coffee table. Spirit Stone Bracelet, Protective Talisman, Potted Plant, Thunderfire Talisman, Black Scale Sword, Spraying Needle Technique, Meridian Opening Acupuncture, Green Lotus Sword Manual, and the ones he couldn't take out. He wrote them down on paper. Staring at the collection, he narrowed his eyes. So far, he had confirmed. The Virtual Girlfriend game equals innate spirit artifact. The talismans from it were real and usable. Then, wouldn't that mean everything else from the game was real too? He stared at the pile of items, deep in thought. So, what secrets do you hold? Let me take a closer look, kahahehe. His gaze turned sharp and analytical, like an X-ray scanner, sweeping across every item on the table. Chapter 97. Junior Sister, Let's Head Down the Mountain. Chen Huaian carefully picked up the now faded protective talisman. The writing on it had blurred, as if soaked in water, making it barely legible. Before, he had always treated this talisman as just another game giveaway, never connecting the strange occurrences around him to it. But now that he knew the Thunderfire talisman was real, did that mean this protective talisman was real too? Chen Huaian narrowed his eyes. The talisman had only started fading after he returned from Mount Highs. That trip had been full of unexpected dangers. First, he had broken his leg, then encountered a landslide. Either of those incidents could have been disastrous for him. Yet, what actually happened? Not only did he return from Mount Highs unscathed, but he even got a hefty reward from a real big shot, earning himself some startup funds. So, the talisman actually worked. That's why it faded. Chen Huaian toyed with the talisman, then brought it to his nose for a sniff. He had already washed it, but the light fragrance still lingered. It definitely wasn't from detergent. His theory was sounding more and more plausible. If only I had another talisman, I could test this out. Maybe I should log into the game later and ask Li Qingran for one. Would that even work? If it did, wouldn't that mean he could get all his items for free in the future? That thought alone made his heart race with anticipation. Speaking of which, there was also that imperial procession on Mount Highs. That must have been another anomaly caused by the spiritual chi revival. I thought the emperor seemed off at the time, but as for what's really going on over there, only the Demon Slayers Bureau would know. It sounds like an official organization, so their intelligence network must be decent. Oh, s. Baji, who was sprawled on the couch, silently listened to Chen Huaian's rambling. Its small, weak body instinctively shrank further into the corner. It's over. The calamity was coming. The big shot had fully realized that this world wasn't normal. Was this the moment his lost memories would resurface? If that happened, would it still be able to keep its Teodi identity hidden? There was no stopping him from uncovering the world's anomalies anymore. No, it had to run. It needed to find a way to escape. Baji stared at the spiritual plant by the window, lost in thought. At its current rate of absorbing spiritual chi, in about a week, it would reach the power level of a 200-year-old demon. By then, breaking through the window and escaping would be easy. Sure, the talismans would leave it badly injured, but as long as it could get away, a little damage was nothing. Better than staying here and risking death at any moment. While Baji was busy plotting its escape, Chen Huaian continued checking his other items. The spiritual stone bracelet was most likely real. Half of its beads had already turned cloudy, meaning their spiritual qi had been depleted. But when, and how, that would require further testing. The potted plant by the window was also suspicious. When he tried to cut a leaf, his scissors wouldn't even make a dent. He decided to keep it for now and see if it grew a mouth or something. As for the black scale sword, he had already decided, he was sleeping with it from now on. A divine weapon like this shouldn't just be left hanging by the bedside. It needed to be close to him, absorbing his unique aura. The orange-red sunset cast long shadows on the coffee table, the glass reflecting the harsh light. Chen Huaian blinked against the glare, suddenly realizing it was already dinner time. His phone, fully charged and resting on the couch armrest, chimed with a notification. After everything that had happened today, he was exhausted. Unplugging the charger, he picked up the phone and launched My Virtual Girlfriend. There were a few things he wanted to test. But when the game loaded, he found that Li Qingran wasn't in her room. She was standing at the peak of falling sunset summit, bathed in the golden hues of dusk. Before her stood senior sister Yu Qianqi and pavilion master Su Qinian. The three of them had solemn expressions, as if engaged in a serious discussion. What's going on? Chen Huaian turned the volume up to max. Their voices became much clearer. Li Qingran, the journey is long, and your cultivation base is still weak. This time, I'll have your senior sister escort you. It'll be good for both of you to have company along the way, Su Qinian said. But, wouldn't that be too much trouble for senior sister? Li Qingran hesitated, glancing between Su Qinian and Yu Qianqi. No trouble at all. Yu Qianqi waved dismissively. My cultivation has already reached a bottleneck. Master has been telling me to go down the mountain for experience, it'll help with my breakthrough. She noticed Li Qingran still looking unsure and leaned over, nudging her playfully. A grin spread across her face, exaggeratedly fawning. Hee, junior sister, I'm not escorting you for free. You're covering the drinks on the way. HMPH. Drinking every day, one of these days, it'll kill you. Su Qinian lifted a hand, aiming to smack Yu Qianqi's head, but she dodged with a laugh. Sighing, Su Qinian turned to Li Qingran and said helplessly, your senior sister is addicted to alcohol. Keep an eye on her so she doesn't mess things up on the way. With things settled, Li Qingran could only nod and bow respectfully. I understand, Pavilion Master. I'll make sure to keep senior sister in check. TCH, old Su, you think junior sister can stop me? Not far behind Li Qingran, Yu Qianqi hung upside down from a tree branch, making a face at Su Qinian. Su Qinian pretended not to see her. Alright, get ready, you two should set off soon. He then took out 2 pouches and handed them to Li Qingran. Though the sword pavilion is lacking in resources, as its master, I must at least provide you with travel funds. Here are 20 low-grade spirit stones, 10 for each of you. Li Qingran, Yu Qianqi, what? Not enough. Su Qinian's face darkened as he shoved the pouches forward, leaving no room for argument. Li Qingran had no choice but to accept. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Pavilion Master. She gave the pouch a tug but found she couldn't pull it away. Su Qinian's grip was firm. Only when Yu Qianqi pried his fingers open one by one did the pouches finally land in Li Qingran's hands. Master, if you don't want to give it, just don't. Yu Qianqi rolled her eyes so hard they nearly flipped over. Caught red-handed, Su Qinian coughed awkwardly, then threw his flying sword into the air, stepping onto it in a flash. HMPH. You two take care, I'm leaving. The Pavilion Master's exit was dramatic. He merged with his sword, weaving through the twilight clouds. Only Li Qingran and Yu Qianqi remained atop falling sunset summit, the air filled with the scent of sun-dried grass. It smelled nice, like a summer night. Li Qingran turned to look at Yu Qianqi. Under the setting sun, senior sister's face was flushed a brilliant red. Yu Qianqi withdrew her gaze from the fading trail of Su Qinian's sword, then slung an arm around Li Qingran's shoulders, laughing. Come on, junior sister, let's head down the mountain. Atop falling sunset summit, the sky burned crimson. A great sword cultivator used the clouds as ink and the sword as a brush, writing. Safe travels. Chapter 98. I, Immortal Chen, want to live. Qingran, where are you two planning to go? Master. Walking down the mountain path with Yu Qianqi, Li Qingran suddenly froze, blinking her big eyes as she looked around. Realizing belatedly that her master wasn't actually there, she lifted her gaze to the sky, her face lighting up with joy. Master, senior sister and I are heading to Lingxi Valley to seek medicine. Lingxi Valley, that far? There's no other choice, Li Qingran explained. Elder Lu searched the entire herb garden and could only gather part of the ingredients needed for the 100 herbs detoxification pill. The rest can only be found in Lingxi Valley, so I plan to head there and search for them. Saying that, she pulled Yu Qianqi, who was looking completely lost, in front of her. Master, this is senior sister Yu Qianqi. The sect master arranged for her to accompany me. With her watching over me, this journey will be much smoother. Yu Qianqi glanced around, but no matter how she looked, she couldn't see the so-called master Li Qingran was speaking to. Awkwardly, she followed Li Qingran's gaze and forced out a polite smile, clasping her hands in greeting. Senior, hello. This was too weird. Who was Li Qingran even talking to? She hadn't heard any voice at all. Was someone speaking directly into Li Qingran's mind? If so, this was beyond awkward. Yu Qianqi dug her toes into the ground, feeling utterly embarrassed. She might be the revered senior sister of the Sword Pavilion, but outside the sect, she was actually quite shy. Your virtual girlfriend has left the Sword Pavilion. Team mode activated. A small team interface appeared in the upper left corner of Chen Huaian's screen. Li Qingran was the team leader, marked by a chibi avatar with a little red flag. Chen Huaian was in the second slot as the vice leader, represented by a white-haired immortal's avatar, but there was an unknown spirit transformation buff attached to his name. Yu Qianqi wasn't automatically included in the team, her name popped up as a pending request. Allow Yu Qianqi to join the team voice chat. Sure. Chen Huaian twitched his lips. The bearded guy had mentioned that some awakened had companion spirits called Divine Brush, with abilities similar to his. But he doubted any other awakened had a companion spirit as entertaining as his. Sword Pavilion senior sister, Yu Qianqi has joined the team. With that notification, Chen Huaian found he could now access Yu Qianqi's basic info. Yu Qianqi, senior sister of the Sword Pavilion. Traits: alcoholic, loyal, protective. Bio: witnessed her parents perish in a fire as a child, nearly dying herself. She was later rescued by Sword Pavilion Master Su Qinian. A golden single spiritual root cultivator, she practices the Xuanwu sword intent and is the Sword Pavilion's true personal disciple. It seemed that once someone became an ally, more of their details became visible, even including a brief life history. Chen Huaian found this feature very reassuring. Oh wow, not bad. This is like having a follower in an MMO, huh? He had been a bit wary of Yu Qianqi, worried she might have ulterior motives for getting close to Li Qingran. After all, his virtual girlfriend was a walking treasure trove, and he couldn't possibly monitor her 24/7. But thankfully, this was just a game. With one simple information display, all his worries vanished. Suddenly, Yu Qianqi heard a voice directly in her mind. So, you're Yu Qianqi. I often hear my disciple mention you. Startled, Yu Qianqi jumped slightly. However, her adaptability was strong. She quickly turned to Li Qingran, teasing, Looks like junior sister talks about me quite a lot, huh? Li Qingran's face instantly turned crimson. She fidgeted with her fingers, unable to meet Yu Qianqi's gaze. I don't talk about you that much, master is exaggerating. Question mark. With you watching over Li Qingran, I can rest assured. Chen Huaian meant it as a compliment, but his words had an unexpected effect. Li Qingran's eyes reddened. Master, what nonsense are you saying? She clenched her fists, wrinkling the hem of her dress, her voice trembling. I am foolish and untalented, yet I am willing to travel far and wide to seek a cure for you, without a single complaint. Last night, I stayed up grinding and sorting those herbs, straining my eyes to ensure not a single mistake. Can't you at least try a little harder for yourself, for my efforts? Please don't say such things, as if you're entrusting me to someone else. Finishing, she wiped her eyes and lowered her head, staring at her feet in silence. Speaking so boldly to her master was improper, but she couldn't hold back. Even if she was punished, she had to say it. Yu Qianqi looked up at the sky, then at Li Qingran. After a brief hesitation, she finally wrapped an arm around Li Qingran and pulled her into her ample embrace. She didn't care whether Li Qingran's master was up in the sky or elsewhere. She scowled and said, Senior, you take care of your own disciple. I'm only 28, I don't want to suddenly have a kid. It'll ruin my chances of finding a Dao companion. All right, Qingran, don't cry. She gently stroked Li Qingran's head. Listen, if your master dares to abandon you, I'll toss you into the 10,000 Beast Mountain and feed you to the demons. Let's see if he dares then. Li Qingran. Meanwhile, in the real world, Chen Huaian fell silent. He hadn't paid much attention to Yu Qianqi's joking threat. His mind was still replaying Li Qingran's words. To be honest, he had always thought the 100 herbs detoxification pill was just a game quest. He had casually mentioned that he was poisoned, so Li Qingran went off to find the best detoxification pill for him. But he knew the truth, cancer wasn't poison. It was something far worse. Even with spiritual chi revival, the bearded guy hadn't guaranteed a cure, only that an awakened might be able to try. So, someone actually cares about me, worries about me, fights to keep me alive. Chen Huaian murmured, his once dim eyes now flickering with a new light. Even if it's just my companion spirit. The bearded guy had said, companion spirits live and die with their host. His companion spirit wanted him to live. His companion spirit was using this game, using Li Qingran's voice, to tell him. Chen Huaian, live on. Don't give up. All right. Hearing his voice echo through the sky, Li Qingran lifted her head slightly. Across two entirely different worlds, their gazes met. Chen Huaian pressed down on the communication talisman and took a deep breath. I will not die. I will live. He, Chen Huaian, was going to survive. You damn heavens, after putting me through all this suffering, you still want me dead. Well, screw you, I'm going to live. Baji, curled up in the corner, trembled as it watched Chen Huaian shouting at the ceiling. Boss, you might be powerful, but if you survive, I die. It shook its head. He's lost it. Boss has completely lost it. Memory recovery always causes temporary insanity. Looks like he's getting close to fully awakening. I need to run. I must escape. Meanwhile, Chen Huaian steadied himself. Before, he had been indifferent, spending money, fighting demonic wolves, facing black-furred rats, because he believed he wouldn't live long. But now, if it meant staying alive, he'd do whatever it took. Slay demons, make money, find the best hospital. Didn't they say there was a 1.5 million per shot miracle drug? If one wasn't enough, he'd take 10. If 10 didn't work, then 100. If those failed, there were still acupuncture techniques like the spring renewal needle and meridian opening needle. As long as he had money, he would keep upgrading treatments until he was cured. Chen Huaian stood up, his heart burning with resolve. He marched to the door, flung it open, and found a small figure standing there. The sudden movement startled the girl, making her yelp as she stumbled back and fell on her butt. Chen Huaian instantly recognized her. Raising an eyebrow, he muttered. 30, Chapter 99. A warm welcome. I'm here to monitor you. Lin Lingling took a sip of her drink, her tone assertive and her expression calm, only her slightly trembling voice betrayed her nerves. The couch was 3 meters long. Baji sat on the far left. Lin Lingling sat on the far right. The space between them was like a vast no man's land. Chen Huaian twitched at the scene. 000, are you afraid of cats? Lin Lingling shot a glance at Baji and swallowed. Yeah. Aren't girls supposed to like cats and dogs? Chen Huaian was surprised. He reached out and ruffled Baji's head. The cat wasn't ugly, on the contrary, he had assumed it would be popular with girls. And yet, Baji was clearly just as scared of Lin Lingling as she was of it. Ha, wasn't this a beautifully tragic case of mutual fear? Lin Lingling lowered her head, silent. It wasn't that she was afraid of cats, it was that this thing wasn't just a cat. Before she arrived, the bearded guy had already warned her. Based on talisman power alone, Chen Huaian could be classified as at least a grade B combatant awakener, but since talismans required extreme costs to acquire, his official designation was set at grade A instructor level awakener. For someone like her, a white grade rookie, that made him a bona fide big shot. And in the eyes of this big shot, that cat demon was just a cute little kitty. No wonder, big shots even had unique tastes in pets. Chen Huaian settled himself between Baji and Lin Lingling. Immediately, he could feel both of them relax, as if an invisible weight had lifted from the room. You said you're here to monitor me. Yes. Lin Lingling was direct. Go, monitoring is secondary. You're extremely important to the Demon Slayers Bureau, and considering the powerful talismans in your possession, potential security risks must be accounted for. That's why a formal bureau member needs to keep watch. Of course, my primary job is to provide you with support. If you ever need anything related to the bureau, just let me know, and I'll handle it for you. And if I refuse to cooperate? Chen Huaian narrowed his eyes. Lin Lingling turned to face him fully. Her short legs, which had been dangling off the couch, folded into a cross-legged position. Then, in a completely serious manner, she knelt, pressed both palms to her forehead, took a deep breath, and bam, she bowed, forehead hitting the floor. Please let me monitor you. Chen Huaian. He stared at her for a long moment, then, for some reason, asked, you get paid for this? Yeah, how much? 1,000 a day. 50-50. Deal. Chen Huaian stretched out his hand, flashing a friendly smile. Welcome aboard. Lin Lingling gripped his fingers and gave them a solemn shake. I'll be in your care. Baji. Right, since I have to monitor you, I'll need to live nearby, but all the apartments above, below, and next door are already occupied, Lin Lingling murmured, cheeks flushing slightly. So, from now on, we'll be siblings. You're my big brother, and I'm your little sister. That'll be our cover story. Since I'm still a student, this will help conceal our awakener identities if we ever go on missions together. Sure. Chen Huaian pointed to the master bedroom. You can have that one. Private bathroom, but don't come out here to use the restroom, I like sleeping naked. Lin Lingling. Call me Oni-chan first. Lin Lingling. Her face froze. Her mouth twitched. After a long hesitation, her pride warring with her survival instincts, she barely managed to choke out the first syllable, oh. Before she could finish, she grabbed her suitcase, dashed into the master bedroom, and slammed the door shut. Baji was dumbfounded. The big shot just let a human kid, one who knew its true identity, move in. Wasn't this a massive security risk? At this rate, its Teodi identity would be exposed before the big shot even fully regained his memories. For the first time, Baji felt a deep, suffocating pressure, like a snake coiling around its throat. Meanwhile, Chen Huaian rubbed his chin in thought. Sure, being watched wasn't ideal, but there were two sides to every coin. With 000 around, he could finally dig into the details of the Demon Slayers Bureau's operations. He could have asked the bearded guy, but since that guy was higher up in the ranks, there were probably things he wouldn't share. Lower-level members like Lin Lingling. Much easier to extract information from. The Demon Slayer's bureau was watching him. But wasn't he also watching them? After all, if he wanted to make money, he needed to understand the playing field. Hey, 000. He knocked on the master bedroom door. Immediately, a pair of cautious eyes peeked out from the crack. After dinner, I want to take a demon hunting mission. Can you help me? Lin Lingling blinked in surprise. The bearded guy wanted Chen Huaian to take missions. Frequent participation would keep him engaged with the bureau and help tackle the growing demon problem in Tianfu district. She had expected persuading him to be difficult. Yet here he was, voluntarily asking to take a mission. Then again, most newly awakened individuals were eager to test their abilities. It was only after facing the true horror of demons that their enthusiasm turned into fear. No problem, she said. The next mission refresh is at 9 tonight. We can check it out then. The latest mission reports will be fresh. Meaning, your bureau's intel isn't always fresh. Chen Huaian raised an eyebrow. Lin Lingling realized her mistake and quickly looked away, pushing the door closed a little. Ha, what? No way. Our intel is always up to date. There's absolutely no way members would ever be put in danger due to outdated reports. The bearded guy had warned her, never expose the bureau's shortcomings. Their issues were only temporary. In time, things would improve. If Chen Huaian found out the truth, she would be the one getting a pay cut. Then why did you come back covered in blood? Well, obviously because the intel was false. Lin Lingling froze. Her face went blank. Then, in an instant, she slapped her hands over her mouth. Bam! The bedroom door slammed shut. Chen Huaian stared at it, suddenly enlightened. The Demon Slayer's bureau was understaffed. So much so that they couldn't even update their mission intel in time. That settled it. No way was he officially joining them. Freelance bounty hunter it was. After all, his main goal now was survival. Behind the door, Lin Lingling leaned against the frame, drained. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. The angrier she got, the more flustered she became. In frustration, she gave herself a light slap and grumbled, Lin Lingling, you absolute idiot. 3 damn zeros, that's what your brain is worth. Lingxi Valley. Young mistress, 2 disciples from the Sword Pavilion will be arriving tomorrow. Their invitation letter has already been delivered. Oh, Sword Pavilion. Behind gauzy curtains, Yun Suxin, who had been meditating, opened her captivating eyes and gazed at the disciples standing outside. Did they state their purpose? Yes, young mistress. They're coming to purchase some spiritual herbs. Lingxi Valley, home to vast spiritual fields, was one of Cangyun Realm's biggest suppliers of rare herbs. Many sects and rogue cultivators bought herbs from them. Not only were the prices lower than the market, but the quality was guaranteed. Lingxi Valley welcomed all business. But Sword Pavilion, that was a different story. Excellent. Yun Suxin's lips curled into a playful smirk. Sword Pavilion had crossed Lingxi Valley before. She hadn't settled that score yet. And now, they were delivering themselves to her doorstep. Oh, she would make sure to give them a proper welcome. Chapter 100. Might have been seen. Prepare yourselves, activate the illusion array in front of Lingxi Valley. The disciple delivering the report hesitated. If they opened that formation, wouldn't those 2 Sword Pavilion disciples be trapped inside indefinitely? Young mistress. She didn't understand why their usually courteous and polite mistress would take such an action. Just do as I say. Why so many questions? Yun Suxin's voice turned cold. The disciple didn't dare ask further. She quickly bowed and retreated. HMPH, if you can break out of the illusion, then I'll allow you to enter the valley and buy your herbs. But if you can't, well, enjoy yourselves in there for a few days, Yun Suxin murmured, closing her eyes again to resume her cultivation. The Zhongzhou secret realm was about to open. She had to raise her strength as soon as possible. Breaking through to golden core perfection before then would be ideal. She must find the ruins of the Medicine King Valley this time. The situation on her mother's side had reached a critical point. She couldn't afford any delays. This was her only chance. Senior sister, how long until we reach Lingxi Valley? Probably by tomorrow afternoon. That night, Li Qingran and Yu Qianqi stopped in a small town and checked into an inn. They had spent the entire afternoon flying on their swords, draining their spiritual qi, so they had to find a place to rest. Yu Qianqi took a sip of the drink on the table. Immediately, her brows furrowed. What the hell is this? It's fruit wine. Li Qingran stuck out her tongue and grinned. The sect master doesn't want you drinking too much. He's afraid you'll crash your sword into a cliff. But I know you like alcohol, so I got something milder. Fruit wine doesn't get you that drunk. Plus, it's even more expensive. Yu Qianqi looked at Li Qingran's adorable, expectant expression and finally sighed in resignation. Clicking her tongue, she muttered, "Tch, fine, not like this small town has any good liquor anyway." Had any other junior dared say that to her, she would have smacked them with her sword hilt. But Li Qingran was different. She was too beautiful, just looking at her made people feel at peace. Beauty really could improve one's mood. Senior sister, do you have something on your mind? Li Qingran noticed that Yu Qianqi was only drinking and not eating, and her usually sharp brows held a trace of worry. It's not really a big deal. Yu Qianqi leaned back, giving a bitter chuckle. Junior sister, remember how our sword pavilion made a move during the disciple recruitment tournament? Li Qingran nodded. Well, Lingxi Valley was there too. Their young mistress was personally present. That woman is as cunning as a fox, and I was the one who searched her during the commotion. She's probably already figured out that it was us who took the new disciples. So, this trip to Lingxi Valley for medicine won't be easy. Li Qingran blinked, concerned. Then, what if they refuse to sell us the herbs? Yu Qianqi downed the last of her fruit wine, snorted, and said. Then we'll force them to sell. We are paying, after all. Li Qingran pursed her lips and let out a dry laugh. There was just one problem. They actually didn't have enough money. Those herbs were extremely valuable. The sect master only gave them 10 low-grade spirit stones each. Even adding in the spirit stones her master had given her over time, it was far from enough. So their plan was to barter instead. They had brought some specialty items from the sword pavilion, flying swords, concealed sword pellets, and the like. Sure, it was a bit shabby, but their quality was top-notch defensive artifacts. Even the tool refining sect had praised the sword pavilion's craftsmanship. Lingxi Valley's cultivators weren't particularly skilled in combat and relied heavily on external tools for self-defense. These items were exactly what they needed. After chatting for a while longer, the two decided to sleep since they couldn't cultivate in their current environment. Li Qingran lifted the bed's canopy, then turned around. Only to see Yu Qianqi had already stripped down to just a dodo. Her ample curves stretched the upper part taut, while the lower part hung loose, like a curtain. Senior sister, what are you doing? Li Qingran slapped her hands over her face, her blush spreading all the way to her ears. What's the big deal? Yu Qianqi stretched lazily, then reached back to undo the strings on her shoulders, casually saying. Sleeping with clothes on is uncomfortable. I've been stuffed in them all day, I need to let loose. Besides, we're both girls. What's there to be shy about? But, Li Qingran stammered, lips trembling. Then, a horrifying realization hit her. Her master always knew what she was doing. Which meant, he could see everything happening around her. Including this. Including senior sister right now. Senior sister, wait, too late. Yu Qianqi was already completely bare. She tilted her head in confusion at Li Qingran's distress. Seeing her junior sister's bright red face, a mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. She reached out. One hand yanked off Li Qingran's outer robe. The other wrapped around Li Qingran's waist and pulled her into bed. The canopy lifted. The blanket rolled over. Two soft, delicate bodies tumbled into the sheets together. Li Qingran's mind went completely blank. All she could register was the warmth against her back, and a playful, wine-scented breath tickling her ear. Hee, you're that shy. Come on, let me see how well you've developed. And no, senior sister, it's not that I'm embarrassed. Then what is it? You've been acting weird from the start. Li Qingran buried her face in the blankets, her voice trembling. Senior sister, my master has great divine abilities. He can always see what's happening around me. Just now, you. The warm body behind her shuddered. Then, it got even hotter. You're joking, right? You're saying, your master can actually see. A tiny, guilty whisper answered. And no way. Yu Qianqi's face burned as if she were on fire. She stammered, he wouldn't be watching all the time, right? I mean, doesn't he have other things to do? And if he really could see, he would have looked away, or at least reacted somehow, right? Li Qingran curled up tighter, biting her lip in silence. Would her master look away? Of course, she knew the answer. Even when she was bathing, she could feel his ever-present gaze. Just as the two were panicking, overthinking, and utterly at a loss, a medium spirit gathering formation appeared out of thin air in their room. Even while traveling, one must not neglect cultivation. A solemn voice echoed through the void. As soon as the words fell, the formation activated. Li Qingran whimpered like a mosquito. Yu Qianqi's scalp tingled, her eyes widening in despair as she watched the spirit gathering formation light up beside the bed. Her last hope, shattered. They're already sleeping. This early. In a taxi, Chen Huaian glanced at the game. When he logged in, Li Qingran and Yu Qianqi were already lying in bed. Probably because the spiritual chi is too thin in mortal lands, guess I'll set up a medium spirit gathering formation so they can cultivate while they rest. With that thought, he casually activated 6 hours of the formation. Li Qingran was already at chi refinement peak, but her survival rate was still only 5%. She had to train harder. No slacking off just because of a trip to Lingxi Valley. I'm such a great master. Chen Huaian grinned smugly. Seeing that the taxi had arrived at Dragon Soar Internet Cafe, he logged out. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.